Apocalyptic Black Technology System. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 20 Cooperate or Bring Goods? The next thing was much simpler. They were all awakened, and then Meng Yibei was injected with a strange thing by a strange bug. From that moment on, her consciousness gradually became blurred, and her thinking also became frozen, as if she had been frozen. She only vaguely remembered that she seemed to have sailed on some aircraft for a long time, and then was in a tunnel full of slime after that. Meng Yibei's memory was completely gone. And then, he woke up with Suran on the beach after listening to Meng Yibei's experiences. Suran also fell into a moment of silence. He thought of more. There are 20 awakened people here in Meng Yibei alone. How many people have been caught by bugs in the world? Even if these experimental subjects have only 1/10 of the transformation success rate, it will be a very scary number. The Spore Life said that they learned from the internal channels of the worms that the swarm conducted dark energy biological experiments in the number 03 experimental brood. So, where was the number 03 experimental brood that killed them during the Pacific War? Suran recalled the unmoved swarm and hive units found by the warships in the depths of peace when they were chasing the Central Mother's Nest. At that time, the fleet concluded that they were the cover-ups left by the Central Mother's Nest, so they quickly passed by and chased after them. And to go, now that I think about it, it may not be the case. However, even if it happens again, knowing that it may be the experimental brood, Suran will not waste time to kill them, because it means that Suran will waste precious opportunities to let the central brood have the opportunity to compete with a large army of insect swarms. The opportunity to meet. In that case, it is very likely that the fleet will be destroyed, and it can be seen from this that the swarm seems to really care about evolution in the field of dark energy for some reason. Suran suddenly thought of the word evolution. Thoughts were flying in their minds. Suran and Meng Yibei said a few words briefly, and then issued a guarantee. Don't worry, your state shows that the progress of the swarm experiment is not enough. We will definitely find a way to completely stabilize you. Consciousness. Meng Yibei just smiled. You don't have to comfort me. Suran felt that this girl didn't believe her a little bit. At this moment, she felt that she was comforting her, right? Suran sighed, didn't say anything, and went back to her room to rest. Soon Meng Yibei watched him leave. After sitting on the sofa in the presidential suite for a while, he stood up silently and walked to the bathroom. After a while, there was the sound of splashing water. The next day, after Suran had breakfast, she called Angus, who had been waiting almost all this time. Poor Mr. Angus. He was originally the captain of the special operations team, and he was a person with a half job, but now here, he has become an errand runner by Suran's side, always on call, didn't dare to delay for a moment, and didn't dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. Suran met Angus in the lounge on the first floor of the San Diego hotel. Because of Suran's arrival, almost all the people here were sent away. Angus became more and more docile today, and asked first when he came up, "How is your rest, Commander?" "Okay. It's a little better than the hard bed in my fleet." Suran smiled, looked at Angus' tired expression and obvious dark circles, and asked knowingly, "How is Mr. Angus resting?" Angus twitched the corner of his mouth, and said, very good, Your Excellency, Commander, please take care. Don't worry. Because I have something important to convey to you today." "What's the matter?" Angus said, "Just tell us, we will be satisfied." "Are you satisfied if I want to be the president?" Suran made a joke that instantly changed Angus' expression, and immediately, Suran said seriously, "It's business. I think you must be curious about why I suddenly appeared here." Hearing these words, Angus immediately cheered up. In fact, at this moment, not only him, but also the senior officials at all levels who were watching this place through the monitoring of the rest hall were also instantly cheered up. "Your Excellency, Commander, you are here for cooperation." Suran said this sentence made many people a little sluggish. Angus was also slightly taken aback, and was immediately pleasantly surprised the strength of the fleet. Now looking at the Earth, who doesn't know? Why has Huaxia become so tough now? Isn't that because the fleet is in China's Xinjiang province? It can be said that whoever can reach a cooperative relationship with the Xinjiang fleet now has reached a cooperative relationship with the world's #1 armed force group. Rao. Angus was incoherent for a moment. On the one hand, he was pleasantly surprised, and on the other hand, he also had doubts. Dare to really believe that. Fortunately, after a while, Angus calmed down and said, Your Excellency Commander, this is no longer something I can decide. I want to, I know, go to your superior, someone who can talk to me. Suran had the calm look on his face that I had expected a long time ago. It didn't seem like the way to get out just came up yesterday without waiting too long. Lieutenant General Noah, who had confessed to Angus yesterday, appeared in front of Suran. The hotel lounge was still empty, and the time difference between Angus's departure and the Lieutenant General's entry was less than 5 minutes. Of course, this Lieutenant General didn't dare to neglect Suran. He faced Suran completely with the attitude of the president of the country, and was even more cautious than that because he knew very well that the person sitting in front of him was a crazy war madman. After a simple exchange of greetings, Noah went straight to the point and said, I don't know what the cooperation of Your Excellency the Commander means specifically. Do you want to move the fleet to our place? Cooperation, of course, has to be done step by step. Suran said, how about this? I don't know if you have heard of our Nightingale aircraft, but I will take out 10 Nightingale aircraft to show my sincerity. How about trying to collaborate? Noah was taken aback for a moment, then revealed a look of surprise, and said, are you going to give us 10 Nightingale aircraft? But Suran showed the expression that you are thinking about farting. Mr. Noah, where did I say that I want to give it away? Cooperation and cooperation, we don't rely on you, we just want to establish a friendly and common anti-pest relationship. 10 units Nightingale aircraft, 6,000 tons of raw ore. Well, here is the simple data information of our Nightingale aircraft. You can take a look first. Chapter 21. You are so sincere. You mean, sell us 10 Nightingale aircraft? Noah was a little dazed, but after thinking about it, he felt that this was normal. Their fleet is so strong, there is no place to rely on their US military, so how can there be any reason to actively give you their advanced aircraft? What Noah didn't expect at all was that Suran was completely empty-handed at the moment. At this time, Noah leaned over half of his body and looked at the basic information of the Nightingale aircraft displayed on Suran's watch. In fact, Noah knew about the Nightingale aircraft before. Even if it was separated by an ocean, he couldn't prevent such a huge country from detecting information. Therefore, Noah is very clear that although the Nightingale aircraft is not the main combat unit of the Xinjiang fleet, its advanced equipment such as anti-gravity engines and shield devices do not know that it is ahead of this one. How many years of advanced equipment in the era, and people have also said that this is the beginning of cooperation. If this is true, Noah instantly looked forward to it. 6,000 tons of raw ore, compared to these 10 Nightingale aircraft, that's not much at all. However, out of caution, Noah did not agree immediately, but simply promised and left quickly. Suran also looked like a tourist, walked out of the San Diego hotel, wandered around the streets, and felt the old and beautiful survivor base construction. After more than an hour, Noah took the initiative to come to the door and said, our leader very much hopes to cooperate with you in the fleet. 6,000 tons of raw ore, how are you going to take it away, Commander? Do you want the fleet to come? No need. Suran said, just pull it in front of me. As for the 10 Nightingale aircraft, can you contact the fleet yourself? Tell my adjutant Yuan Lichen where you want the 10 Nightingale aircraft to appear. Noah frowned slightly when he heard the words. At first, he didn't quite understand why the US had to go to the fleet instead of conveying it directly through the commander, but this lieutenant general is also a smart person. Looking at Suran's calm expression, he soon realized that, this commander, he wanted to announce the cooperation between the fleet and the US to the world through this contact. This is too sincere and clever. Noah was moved in his heart, and said, don't worry, Commander, since you are so sincere, we will definitely show absolute sincerity. Suran smiled lightly, and didn't seem to care that much. He quickly stood up and left. In fact, although Suran's face is as stable as an old dog, but in his heart he is very happy. He just moved his lips, and everything was settled. 10 Nightingale flying machines are worth 1,000 resource points, and 6,000 tons of raw ore can provide him with at least 5,000 resource points. This transaction can only make a profit. Moreover, he doesn't have to take the time and effort to contact Xinjiang, and the US military will be overjoyed to take the initiative to contact him. As for myself, I just need to sit here and wait. As for cooperating, just cooperating once, isn't it also cooperating? Suran returned to her room, and found that the door of Meng Yibei's room was still closed, as if she had never stepped out. Suran didn't think much about it, so she sat down on the sofa in the living room of the suite and started browsing own tire for manufacturing list. The Yunchang crashed and the fleet suffered heavy losses, but Suran was not too anxious. Judging from the current situation, his strategic goal had been achieved. The Central Brood was destroyed in the Pacific War that day. The group command system has no leader, and its combat ability is greatly reduced. At this time, it is not difficult to hunt and kill the swarm, and then roll up 200,000 resource points. Not to mention, he has not built a Kyushu Island battlefield yet. Therefore, his main purpose of browsing his list at this moment is to find out if there is a solution to Meng Yibei's problem. From the experience before, Su Ran can basically be sure that Meng Yibei did not lie, and it is indeed human consciousness that controls that body now. In this case, Su Ran really moved to include her. This girl's combat prowess is obvious to all. Although she indirectly caused the crash of the Yuncheng and killed many people, she did not do it all by herself. She is just a victim. What age is this? It doesn't matter if you killed it or not, I'll kill you. Su Ran, the commander, has long since lost such petty thoughts. What he saw was the kindness in this girl's heart. Of course, the most important thing is that they are very powerful. If Su Ran himself is a half-level 18 dark energy awakener, but his perception ability is too strong, then Meng Yibei is a complete 18-level awakener, an all-round existence with extremely strong combat effectiveness. The fleet needs such talent. However, after searching, Su Ran found very little. He only found a few sedatives, which might have some effect on Meng Yibei, but now Su Ran doesn't have enough resources, and there is no way to try these medicines. Noah's speed was really fast. It was said that it was noon the next day, but in fact, the next morning, Su Ran saw the 6,000 tons of raw ore he wanted in the warehouse north of San Diego. Su Ran didn't invite Noah and the others out, but started recycling the resources in front of everyone, because he knew it was meaningless. Even if he invited Noah and the others out, it wouldn't matter. He couldn't dismantle the surveillance equipment in this room, that would be too out of character for him. So, under the stunned expressions of Noah and others, Su Ran strolled in the courtyard, and spent about 2 minutes to wipe out the 6,000 tons of raw ore piled up like a mountain. In the end, Noah couldn't help asking, "Your Excellency Commander, this is, did you tell the fleet where the 10 Nightingale aircraft will be placed?" Su Ran didn't answer what he meant, but asked with a smile, with a calm smile on her face, that everything was under my control. That's it, let's put it in our San Diego. Seeing that Su Ran didn't want to answer, Noah didn't dare to ask more. "It was your adjutant, Mr. Yuan Lichen, who contacted us yet?" Su Ran smiled and said casually, "Didn't you say anything over there?" "I didn't say anything," Noah said. "I just said that it needs to be transported from Xinjiang, and it will arrive at least tomorrow." Su Ran just nodded. Sure enough, Lao Yuan is still reliable. If Li Yilan's cute and silly guy came, he would probably ask, "Su Ran is not here, how can I promise you the Nightingale flying machine?" And Yuan Lichen obviously had an insight into the situation, but why did he arrive tomorrow? Chapter 22: The Flames of War. Su Ran is not the kind of person who gets cheap and acts good. On the way back, he didn't explain too much, and didn't pretend to be 13. Instead, he was more polite and said to Noah, "Very good, if our cooperation goes well this time, I will consider selling you a destroyer." Hearing these words, Lieutenant General Noah's eyes lit up. He doesn't know what level of destroyer exists. Although it is not the same as the Awakener that appeared in the Skybrood War and the unknown new type of warship that crossed the Starry Sky battlefield 3 days ago, it is definitely far superior to the existence of the Nightingale aircraft. Moreover, it even has the record of defeating the Ice City Brood. No matter from which aspect, the value of one destroyer is far higher than 10 Nightingale aircraft. Noah was overjoyed and said, "It would be really great if this could happen." "I don't know how much we need to pay for a destroyer." Su Ran thought for a while, stretched out her finger, and made a 100,000 tons of resources. Su Ran is still not afraid of the Nightingale aircraft, destroyer and so on. Of course, he also knows that once this kind of thing enters the hands of the United States, the first thing they will do is to research technology. However, when they understand it, then but it may not be so many years later, when he does not know how many levels he has reached, the mere destroyer and Nightingale aircraft will be copied by someone, and it may not even be considered a threat to him. Su Ran's asking price is definitely a lion's mouth. A Nightingale aircraft only has 1,000 resource points, and 100,000 tons of resources can be converted into at least 70,000 resource points, which is a 70-fold increase. The current form is different, and the asking price is naturally different. Of course, Su Ran also believes that the US side will never think that this price is a loss. After all, the technology in the destroyer, no matter which one, cannot be bought by anyone with resources, and it cannot be bought with real money. A priceless treasure. Noel did not show any surprise as expected. Obviously, he felt that a battleship of this specification was worth the price, even cheaper. Suran chuckled in his heart. Under the current military achievements, the fleet has already been famous. Looking around the world, who doesn't know the force of the fleet? Moreover, the threat of the insect swarm has temporarily come to an end, and the opportunity to open up international trade, amass a large amount of money, and collect resource points has finally arrived. The grand plan that Suran had sketched in his heart for a long time finally got the chance to unfold. It wasn't that he didn't want to do it before, but because he couldn't. When he was in Xinjiang, the contract with the swarm was ahead, and the imminent enemy was close at hand. Even if Suran wanted to develop, he didn't have that opportunity. Everyone may think that development is a very simple matter, but as long as you think about it a little bit, you can understand that this is not something that can be achieved naturally with the progress of the situation. The San Diego military's judgment and attitude towards Suran have also changed several times. Suran has always been smiling, but Suran can also feel that with the advancement of this cooperation, this NUO, whether it's Lieutenant General Ya or the pretentious Captain Angus, they all have a little more respect for Suran, of course. Only Meng Chubei, who has been hiding in his room and never going out, feels that Suran is just an ordinary soldier. The discussion with Noah was over, and when he returned to the presidential suite, Meng Yibei hadn't gone out yet. How can Suran not understand at this moment? It's not that Meng Yibei hasn't woken up yet, but that she doesn't want to come out. And the reason why I don't want to go out, the situation. Maybe it's not as optimistic as she said? Suran pondered for a moment, sighed slightly in her heart, but didn't say anything. Anyway, according to Yuan Licheng's promise, the fleet should come tomorrow with 10 Nightingale aircraft. The current fleet should still be able to come together, and Suran doesn't have to worry about this deal. By then, Meng Yibei's misunderstanding about his identity can naturally be resolved, and when he returns to Xinjiang, he can further confirm Meng Yibei's identity. According to Bai's current situation, give the most appropriate treatment. Therefore, Suran chose not to disturb her now, and after taking a hot bath, she returned to her room and lay down. Generally speaking, this time is also a blessing in misfortune. Although it accidentally fell on Lao Mei's side, she took this opportunity to successfully open the trade road. Next, the world will become rich, millions of resource points, and the reconstruction of Yuncheng is just around the corner. Suran thought about it, and even outlined in his mind the configuration of his fleet's shotgun replacement, all frigates guarding the battleship Yuncheng. However, Suran did not forget to be cautious. Before thinking about it, he had already used the batch of resource points he had just obtained to start a new batch of manufacturing, creating some sedative drugs that Meng Yibei might be able to use. He also built a Wind Falcon attacker, just in case. Afterwards, Suran fell into deep sleep. This time he didn't fall into a dream, but he didn't sleep well either. He was woken up by the loud noise and shock. For many years in the last days, he was already keen, and when there was a slight abnormal sound, he opened his eyes instantly. What he noticed at the first instant was that it was getting dark. Is the fleet coming? No, this is war. There are earth-shattering loud noises coming from outside, accompanied by rumbling tremors of the earth. Suran came to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looked up at the sky, and saw a large cloud covering the world. That is, Sky Brood Battle Group. Suran's pupils suddenly shrank. How could the Sky Brood Combat Group appear here at this time? Countless thoughts flashed through Suran's mind. Looking from him, he could see the far end of San Diego City. There were missiles dragging their tail flames, leaping up into the sky with magnificent trajectories, and then the Sky Mother blooming brightly in the battle group of the nest. And at this moment, outside the presidential suite where Suran was, there was a series of hasty and heavy knocks on the door. It was Angus who came, and he led a team of soldiers. With an anxious expression on his face, he said, "Your Excellency, San Diego was attacked by the Swarm Sky Brood attack group. The floor where you are located is too high. It is too dangerous. Please come downstairs with us immediately." Suran responded, and immediately went back to find Meng Yibei. At this time, he didn't care about those etiquette taboos, and pushed the door open, only to see the tall and slender Meng Yibei standing with his hands behind his back. In front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, he was bathed in the shadow of the sky and illuminated by the explosive flames. He slightly raised his head, staring at the swarm of insects covering the sky in a daze. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 23 The Chosen Son. Meng Yibai? Meng Yibai? Meng Yibai? Su-ran yelled 3 times, and the slender woman standing by the window finally came to her senses. She turned her head, looked at Su-ran in a daze, and then her eyes regained clarity, and said, "This is, my God, the swarm?" Su-ran took a deep look at her and said, "Come on, let's go downstairs first." Meng Yibai hesitated for a moment before following Su-ran and the others all the way downstairs. The road was safe and sound. The San Diego hotel was far away from the U.S. military area, and because of Su-ran's presence, almost all the original residents and ordinary survivors around were expelled. Instead, this place became an important and unimportant area. "It's safe for now." Meng Yibai didn't speak all the way, but Su-ran asked Angus, "What's the situation? Did it mean that the sky brood of the insect swarm has retreated to the California border? Why did it suddenly appear here? This is not the sky brood." Angus walked in the front of the team and replied, "It came from the sea, from the Pacific Ocean." The sentence made Su-ran's face change slightly, and he didn't know what he thought of it this time. They finally came downstairs, and Angus made the arrangement at this time, saying, "Your Excellency Commander, we will arrange for you to leave San Diego immediately." Without support, they came here, and now they occupy the peak, but they have to stay here. However, if your fleet can make a move, that would be even better. Su-ran is considered half a general now, so of course he can see the current situation now. The swarm of insects has no leader. Although I don't know why this sky brood came from the sea and raided San Diego, it is impossible for it to gain the upper hand for a long time. The United States has a large number of troops in California. The reinforcements will come from afar, and by then, the sky brood nest will be caught in the urn and will be wiped out by the U.S. side. However, Angus' question stopped Su-ran, making him unable to answer. He just said, "Hurry up." At this time, they were boarding a military vehicle that had been waiting below for a long time. When Su-ran turned around, she saw Meng Yibai staring at him with big eyes, seeming to be surprised. "Did I hear something wrong just now?" That Angus called Su-ran Your Excellency Commander. If Su-ran died in San Diego, the United States will definitely become the target of the fleet's anger. Therefore, this time, the security is extremely tight, and an armored battalion personally escorts Su-ran speeding fast, crossing the streets and alleys, all the way to the edge of the city of San Diego. Looking at the sky from here, the huge sky brood battle group has already enveloped the entire San Diego. At this moment, it is clearly 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and in the daytime, the city of San Diego is gray, as if night has come. The streets are full of evacuated people. However, at this moment, Su-ran's convoy was suddenly attacked. Those were the 2 sky watchers accompanied by the whalers and called them down from the sky, and what reached the ground faster than the wind whipped up by the sky watchers' wings was a plasma ball that pierced through the sky in the center of the convoy. The armored vehicle that Su-ran was riding on suddenly changed direction and dodged a high-temperature plasma bomb that fell from the sky. Immediately afterwards, Su-ran felt a violent tremors on the ground. He looked out from the small observation window at the back. "I was seeing an infantry vehicle on the side being hit by another plasma ball. The whole thing was pierced and detonated, and stopped in place with billowing smoke." The 3 Griffin-tracked combat vehicles located at the rear of the convoy raised their 50mm cannons one after another, pointing obliquely at the sky, and cooperating with the rocket launchers surrounding Su-ran's sides. They spewed out the flames of death. The 2 sky watchers were forced to raise their altitude, but they gave way to the figure of the howler behind them. The 12 plasma cannons on the whaler's body successfully completed a round of bombardment. The 12 plasma cannons lifted the ground of the entire street, thick smoke billowed, flames burst into clusters, and several armored vehicles were directly destroyed. The remaining tanks are still desperately venting their firepower at this moment. The 2 sky watchers swooped down from the sky again, facing the intensive firepower on the ground, and paid the price of their lives in a terrorist wave of suicide attack, crashing into the convoy running on a messy street like a comet hitting the earth. Seeing this scene, Angus's face changed. Are they crazy? The armored vehicle Su-ran and the others were in made an emergency turn, avoiding it like a writhing python, but was still affected. The huge wings of a dead skywatcher swept over and swept Su-ran and their armored vehicle out in one fell swoop. Like a heavy piece of it smashed into a shop in the corner like a piece of iron, and the plaque of that shop was smashed down, hit the top of the armored vehicle, and was bounced out again in the sky. The howlers were screaming shockingly, and the second round of 12 plasma balls was washing the street. The buildings collapsed, and the street was broken. The interior of the armored vehicle was also bleak, and many people were knocked bloody in the bumps and shocks. Angus cursed several old American curses in a row, stood up staggeringly, and roared at the communication device. He was thinking about something, while trying to open the door to go out. In this case, staying in the armored vehicle would be courting death. With the firepower of this escort team, it is no problem to deal with the scattered small-scale locust swarms. However, who knows, now that the main force of the Sky Brood is clearly at war with the San Diego garrison, why would they send such a combination of howlers and sky patrollers to attack their convoy? However, before Angus manually opened the door, Meng Yibei opened the armored vehicle. One side of the armored vehicle seemed to be torn apart with brute force, and it was torn apart abruptly in the middle, and Meng Yibei just sat in the corner and waved his arms twice. Rao had seen Meng Yibei torture and kill the digger before. At this moment Angus also silently exclaimed in his heart, such an awakened person is too exaggerated? Is this the so-called chosen son? Damn it, why are the chosen ones all Chinese? Angus had two thoughts that should not have appeared at this time, and then quickly said, let's go immediately. They filed out. At this time, the Howler was cruising the street. For some reason, he didn't launch a third round of attacks, but seemed to be looking for something, and this was even more surprising when they created an opportunity, left the infantry chariot, and rushed out from the back door of this shop, and came to another street. At this time, Angus was slightly relieved, and said, don't worry, our Air Force will arrive soon, and by then, the swarm won't have time to care about such corners and corners. Chapter 24 The Art of War. As if echoing Angus' words, not long after Angus finished speaking, the sound of fighter jets tearing the air resounded in the sky. Su-Ran raised his head and looked into the sky, and saw in the far sky of San Diego, a group of fighter jets with a size of about 100 approaching in this direction. As they approached, they slowly stretched out and gradually changed form. 3 attack teams to face the dark cloud over the survivor base in San Diego. The Sky Brood combat group responded immediately, sending a large swarm of migrating locusts to meet them. However, with the emergence of this air formation, the attack from San Diego seems to have strengthened a lot. These fighter planes must be carrying some kind of powerful weapon, but this time, Su-Ran saw Liao Mai's explosive energy weapon, which was loaded on a fighter jet, and shot blue flashes at high speed. On the contrary, it has greatly improved their combat capabilities. However, this old American air formation did not last long. They met the locust swarm head-on, but the purpose of the locust swarm was not to stop them. These migratory locusts carried some unknown Zerg bombs and attacked on a large scale. Only to conceal the existence of this kind of Zerg bomb, it was put into use after being strangled with fighter jets. The Zerg bomb was not a gunpowder weapon, but some kind of biochemical weapon. After it was thrown and exploded, a large black and red mist was formed and dispersed in the air. When the fog was thick enough, these migratory locusts suddenly raised their heights and broke away from the battle group, while the human fighters began to attack each other like headless flies. Su-Ran slowly withdrew his gaze. This was not beyond his expectation. The swarm's biochemical weapons were various and used in many battlefields. However, due to the tight protection of the battleships, the fleet almost never encountered them. Biological weapons, because the swarm knows that throwing them is useless at this moment. Su-Ran, who was hiding under a building, had doubts in his heart. Who ordered the Sky Brood to appear here? Or is it just acting on its own spore? Life said that although the swarm is a honeycomb system, this is not absolute. There are many advanced units in the swarm, such as the Sky Brood, Figalo, etc., all of which have the ability to act independently of the command and permissions. Fu CK, an American curse brought Su-Ran back to reality. Angus' face was extremely ugly, and he said, damn it, they're after us. 5 howlers and a large number of locusts are moving towards us. Su-Ran also changed color slightly, but he didn't say nonsense, turned his head and withdrew. This is the magic skill he learned from dealing with a variety of alien creatures. Hit if you can beat it, run if you can't beat it, surrender if you can't run. In short, I will come back to beat you when I am strong. There is no shame in running, and there is no shame in surrendering. It is only blood loss when you die. This is the art of fighting, living, and fighting life. However, this group of insects seemed to have a clear goal, not to wipe out the survivors, but to run towards Su-Ran and the others, trailing behind them like Tarsus maggots. They were flying in the air, while Su-Ran and the others were running on the ground. Even with the help of the cover of the building, they were quickly overtaken. 5 howlers fired in unison. and 60 plasma balls were enough to turn the land over. Su Ran saw a 30-story skyscraper in front of it was hit by more than 20 plasma cannons, and fell down like dominoes being toppled. Angus was so frightened that the souls of the dead jumped out. While running to the side like crazy, he shouted, "Your Excellency, Commander, run! Run!" However, when he turned his head, he found that the two Asians were running faster than rabbits. Although they were at the back, they came first. Their legs were twitching wildly, and they overtook Angus and him. "Men, run to the front," but Angus and the others are almost unable to get out of the collapsed area of the building at this moment. Angus felt his body lighten suddenly, being pulled into the air by some invisible force, accelerated suddenly, and was thrown out directly. Angus saw that it was Meng Yibai who rescued them, and then, tall buildings fell to the ground. Amidst the loud noise, smoke and dust boiled up, engulfing the three surrounding streets, and in the sky, 5 howlers and thousands of migratory locusts hovered over this area, neither attacking, nor leave. One of the howlers was coming out more and more, slowly lowering its height, blowing out waves of air to disperse the smoke and dust. Su Ran was also thrown out. Fortunately, his physique was extraordinary, and there was almost nothing wrong with him. Before he stood up, he heard Angus shouting on the other side, "Your Excellency, Commander. When will your fleet arrive?" Su Ran wanted to reply that "I don't know," but his expression froze soon because the smoke and dust above his head was slowly dissipating. A wailing man, full of smoke and dust, appeared in the sky, lowering the height inch by inch, as if it was less than 500 meters from the ground, and there were many muzzles, aiming at the sky below. Su Ran, the terrifying threat of death came instantly. Su Ran's expression froze at this moment, and his brain was running fast. Should I immediately fall down and pretend to be dead? Would that be too fake? Scared to death? No, I still have dark energy. Although my dark energy has no combat ability, it is possible to control objects. As long as I react fast enough, I should be able to deflect all its attacks with dark energy. As soon as Su Ran had this thought, the whaler opened fire. The 12 plasma cannons ejected at high-temperature plasma clusters, bombarding Su Ran's position almost in no particular order. Su Ran immediately got up to 120,000 points. The first one, successfully deflected, flew out obliquely under the guidance of dark energy. The second one, changed course successfully. The third, the fourth. No, this speed is too slow. There are not enough computers in the brain. If this continues, I will die. Su Ran used his own dark energy to successfully deflect 5 plasma balls, but there were still 7 that could not be stopped, and the howling came head-on with a breath of high temperature and death. Angus behind saw this scene. His eyes were tearing. If this commander dies here, in San Diego, it will be over. Su Ran's face also changed suddenly, but his brain was still running at high speed, looking for any possibility of void. Although the coverage area of the 7 plasma cannons is still large, it is far less than 12. If you avoid it, you can accept being hit by 1 and affected by 2. You can't die. Su Ran's thoughts raced, and he was about to start evading immediately. But at this moment, he suddenly noticed that the 7 plasma balls that descended from the sky suddenly froze in mid-air and stopped moving. Chapter 25: The Meaning of Teams. From the depths of smoke and shadow, a tall woman is slowly walking out with dull silver-gray skin and a perfect figure. It was Meng Yibai who blocked the 7 plasma balls. The 7 plasma balls stagnated in the sky for a moment, and then were thrown out by Meng Yibai as soon as she appeared. The other 4 whalers and many locusts in the sky lowered their altitude together, and thousands of locusts even fell from the sky just like that, falling on the streets where the smoke and dust have not dispersed, the ruins of collapsed buildings, etc. They landed on the ground, but they all faced Meng Yibai, who was facing the front. Lowering their heads slightly, even the howlers who were ready to go out in the sky all extinguished the plasma cannons on their bodies, and lowered their bodies, not daring to be on a high place. That scene was like a swarm of insects from the heavens, worshipping their king. This, Angus, who hurried out from behind and stumbled, was dumbfounded looking at this scene. He stood there dumbfounded, looked blankly at Meng Yibai, and then at the commander, but he didn't see any answer on anyone's face. In fact, at this moment, Su Ran was also in a daze. Not knowing what happened, but he probably understood that this might be closely related to Meng Yibai. The reason why this group of howlers and migratory locusts killed my group is probably clear now. This is to recover the experimental body, but it doesn't look like a school of worship. What is that? Meng Yibai was slowly walking out from the shadow behind, came to Su Ran's body, and slowly raised his arms towards the sky. The sight of her with her arms outstretched before the cascading swarm of adoring worms is like bathing in the mountain. Suran's face changed slightly, and he called out in a low voice, Meng Yibai. Meng Yibai didn't answer. The whaler ship closest to them was lowering its altitude a little bit and approaching. Its huge body twisted slightly, as if it was looking left and right at Meng Yibai, sniffing something, issued a burst of humming, and at this moment, what surprised Suran even more happened. Meng Yibai opened his mouth, and even let out that inhuman neighing sound, as if responding to the howler. Is this communicating? Suran realized this, but didn't say a word, because Meng Yibai just saved himself, and at this moment he chose to believe in the other party. After about 15 seconds, their exchange ended. Then, the howler suddenly let out a high-pitched neigh accompanied by this neighing sound. The crowd of insects on the ground vibrated, and Meng Yibai made a move at this moment. Her open arm suddenly slapped in the middle and then suddenly pulled. In the space, the whaler made an earth-shattering sound. The real wailing, the center was torn apart by the invisible dark energy, the blood and internal organs were thrown wildly, and the broken body in two was thrown out, smashing tragically in the ruins on both sides. And the scene once again broke. The strange peace in this scene. Many migratory locusts and howlers screamed in unison, and their voices echoed, but Meng Yibai turned his head immediately and was about to run to the other side. It looked like he wanted to get rid of everyone. Suran gritted her teeth, hesitated for a second, and immediately chased after her. He understood that Meng Yibai wanted to lure these bugs away, but he couldn't let her do that. She was more dangerous than all these bugs combined. If the bugs caught her, the consequences. Angus on the other side yelled, "Hey, wait for us." Angus was not very clear about Meng Yibai's origin, and was basically at a loss for the scene just now. Although he was not stupid, it was naturally difficult to draw any accurate conclusions due to poor information. But Suran shouted, "Don't follow, it's a burden." Although it hurts to say so, it is undoubtedly the best response that can stop an elite like Angus in the first place. Angus paused as expected, and the next scene surprised him even more. The migratory locusts were like a swarm of bats whizzing across the sky, fluttering their wings and making a fluttering sound. A human being flew over their heads and followed Suran and the two of them. This Angus' expression became even more confused, and he said, "Did the swarm find out that he is the commander of the Xinjiang fleet?" Boom! Suran watched helplessly as a plasma cannon smashed into the building on one side. Amidst a loud noise, the entire retro store was blown up, and a large number of debris was swept out by the shock wave. Meng Yi, who was running in front, with a wave of Bai's hand, those fragments, large or small, were forced back by the dark energy she controlled, and she continued to rush forward smoothly. The howlers in the sky were firing in turn, continuously bombarding the two of them. It was only at this time that Suran realized that in the movie, the main character dodges all the bombardment while running all the way. They all seem to be struggling, and they need to resist the dark energy to avoid the full amount of damage. The damage and high temperature of a plasma cannon are not a joke. Once you get hit, you don't have to run away. If you don't die, you are waiting to die wherever they passed. The streets of San Diego were swept by plasma cannons, leaving everything in disarray and devastation. As the cannon fodder was flying, Meng Yibai tore a migratory locust from the air with one hand, threw it at a plasma ball like a rag, and shouted, "Suran, hurry up. Don't follow me, their target is me, I lead them away." Suran sighed in her heart, and said, "You lure them away, where are you going to lure them? How do you lure them? What if you are caught? You really think this is a movie? You can run all the way without a plan. Escaping is impossible. Everything in reality requires planning and a team. This doesn't seem like the time to talk big." Meng Yibai stopped suddenly, because right in front of them on the street, a howler was stabbing diagonally. Meng Yibai stretched out his hands like lightning and pushed flat. Huge force erupted in the space, and the howler seemed to be hit by a sledgehammer. It moved backwards and smashed into a 7-story building behind with a loud noise. It was completely embedded and collapsed. It was buried on the spot, but at this time, 2 plasma cannons roared from behind, but Meng Yibai was unable to dodge it. Suran shot like lightning, controlled the dark energy, and deflected the direction of the 2 plasma balls in the air. With more and more people in the battle, Suran felt that his proficiency in dark energy was getting higher and higher. He looked at Meng Yibai and said, "Look, this is the meaning of the team." However, Meng Yibai only stretched out his hand to pull Suran staggeringly away from the position just now. At that moment, a poisonous needle of migratory locust fell from the air and landed on Suran's position just now. Chapter 26. I am the king of the swarm. Su-ran took this opportunity to take a stride, and came to Meng Yibei's side in a flash, took her hand, crashed all the way into a building on the side, and quickly moved to another building under the cover of the building street. Just now Meng Yibei was running in front and Su-ran was chasing after him, but now, it has become Su-ran pulling Meng Yibei to run. Meng Yibei was slightly confused. What are you doing? Of course it's a plan. Su-ran said, I have a plan. Delaying time is also called planning? Meng Yibei was taken aback. This is not a plan. What is a plan? My fleet will arrive tomorrow at the latest. We just need to survive tomorrow. Su-ran couldn't finish his words. Accompanied by an explosion, the outer layer of the building was being bombarded by dense plasma balls. Su-ran turned his head and saw dazzling flashes everywhere. He and Meng Yibei went all the way. He rushed forward and rushed out of the building in the blink of an eye. At this moment, an alarm bell rang in Su-ran's heart. He turned his head and saw a saber-foot slashing head-on. It was a 5-meter-tall insect with a figure like a praying mantis and 32 eyes. Su-ran only saw it once in the Korai Peninsula, on the broken-down Mobile Brood platform, new www.xsbigwish.vip. Time to see you. The only difference is that this praying mantis-like combat insect has some pretty paint on its body, as if it were some kind of special existence. It cut down with a strong wind of thunder, and in the sky behind it, a swarm of locusts roared, covering the street in the blink of an eye, and behind it, a large swarm of insects shone with purple fluorescent light. Electromagnetic Praetorians. Su-ran got out of this blow and Meng Yibei retreated steadily. In the blink of an eye, he was already trapped in a tight siege. The praying mantis-like insect failed to succeed in a single blow, and quickly retreated. It was surrounded by the electromagnetic guard war insects holding up the shield in the sky. Dense migratory locusts came like raindrops just as Su-ran was about to make a move. These migratory locusts flew out obliquely in front of dozens of locusts. As if encountering a gust of wind, Meng Yibei was taking a step forward, past Su-ran, and intercepted these war insects. Seeing this girl's valiant and heroic appearance, Su-ran was really moved for a moment. However, this heartbeat is not the kind of love heartbeat, but, I just need a strong bodyguard. This girl is just perfect. In other TV dramas, isn't it always the boss who is accompanied by a thug who is against the sky? But Meng Yibei's ability is not unlimited. She can't strangle thousands of migratory locusts in the sky by herself, especially right now. The frontal electromagnetic guards are guarding the praying mantis-like war insect. Step by step forward. These ground combat insects may be the real threat. Meng Yibei fought against a migratory locust with one hand, and blocked Su-ran who was about to attack with the other hand. The two retreated step by step. She whispered, "That is the advanced individual combat unit of the swarm. We had better not be caught." They hold the electromagnetic guards on the ground pressed forward inch by inch, and the migratory locusts in the sky kept harassing. What Su-ran and Meng Yibei didn't notice was that there was a snake walking slowly in the ruins of the street beside them. Slowly approaching, finally, at a distance of 7 or 8 meters, it leaped out like lightning, opened its huge mouth, and spit out a strange projectile from it. Meng Yibei reacted quickly, smashing the bullet and the head of the ground snake with a wave of his hand. However, what surged out of the projectile was some kind of strange pale green gas, which spread instantly with the wind. The moment Meng Yibei inhaled these things, Meng Yibei coughed violently, showing a clear expression of pupils. His body was half bent down, and the dark energy controlling the audience was instantly out of balance. Su-ran noticed that one of the girl's pupils suddenly changed drastically at this moment, rapidly changing between the normal black and white pupils of humans and the abnormal linear pupils, and she let out a scream. Seeing this scene, the migratory locusts in the sky quickly killed them, and the electromagnetic guards on the ground rushed forward at high speed. "I'm Pete." Su-ran gritted her teeth, still grabbed the woman, and dragged Meng Yibei, who was in great pain, to stumble backwards. His strength and dark energy was actually only slightly weaker than Meng Yibei's, but it is difficult for him to turn dark energy into an offensive method, and it is difficult for him to use dark energy to manipulate objects to bloom more, but even so, he can barely manage to cull many flying creatures that have fallen from the sky. The locusts settled in midair, creating an opportunity for him to escape, but at this moment, the electromagnetic guards behind opened fire. They used some kind of strange discharge gun to shock, but the attack distance of this weapon is limited. At most it can only restrict Su-ran's movement and position, and that's what they are for. As Su-ran's movements were restricted more and more, the praying mantis-like monster finally rose from the crowd of electromagnetic guards. It kicked off the ground, flapped its wings in midair, and killed Su-ran at high speed. Ran came from behind, and the sickle-like blade foot slashed head-on again, Su Ran immediately hugged Meng Yibai as a princess, and immediately kicked back, shouting, "Meng Yibai, you don't have the strength yet, first crush this big flea to death." Meng Yibei's face was distorted, the 6 strips of luminous bodies on his face were brightening up one by one, and while panting for distance, one of the eyes was still changing, and there was an in his mouth. To Su Ran's sound doesn't seem to respond at all. Su Ran plunged into a building on the other side. Just as he rushed in, he heard a loud noise. The praying mantis-like monster crashed through the floor-to-ceiling glass on the other side. He rushed forward, and shot out a piece of poisonous needle at high speed. Su Ran retreated at high speed, picked up an unknown copper sculpture in the middle of the first floor of the office building, and held Meng Yibai in one hand. At this time, she didn't retreat and fought back, and met with a mantis-like monster in the middle of the building. Dark energy surged out, and the body of the praying mantis-like monster froze suddenly, and Su Ran's copper sculpture fell down instantly. There was a loud bang. The mantis-like monster was directly smashed into the ground by Su Ran. The marble floor tiles cracked like spider webs, and the opponent let out a howl, and was about to raise his body again, and the second heavy hammer greeted him. The copper sculpture weighing several tons turned into a hammer in Su Ran's hands. With the control of dark energy, half of the praying mantis-like monster's body was smashed into the ground by Su Ran, and its hut armor was cracked, is still alive. But at this moment, Meng Yibai, who had been suffering and distorted all the time, seemed to have regained a gleam of clarity. He stretched out his hand, grabbed Su Ran's arm, and said word by word, "Kill me, Su Ran, kill me now. I lied to you, what is in my body is the queen of these bugs." Chapter 27 at number 039, time for me to die. Su Ran's movements froze for a moment. Judging from the battle of worship just now, Su Ran really felt that the worm who competed with Meng Yibai for control of his body should have a high status in the worm www.bikwaju.xyz, swarm, or this new evolutionary experiment. The body should have a high status for the swarm. However, Su Ran never thought that Meng Yibai would say that the person in her body is the queen of the swarm. Queen, do you understand what you're talking about? Su Ran heard the neighing of the bugs outside the building getting closer. She threw away the statue in her hand, hugged Meng Yibai and began to retreat quickly. That's it. It's the first recipient of the preliminary success of the swarm's biological experiment, and it's also the first newly evolved queen in the swarm to fully control the dark energy. It's eroding me. If it is destroyed, the swarm welcomes back. The consequences are unimaginable. Kill me, Su Ran. Have you forgotten our agreement? Kill me while I still have self-consciousness. I don't want to live in a dark world, lose everything, lose my right body, the right to control, but also to be controlled by others to slaughter our race. The glass on the first floor of this building is completely shattered. The electromagnetic guards are stepping into the battlefield with the glass shards all over the floor and on the ground. The purple-painted praying mantis-like monster was writhing and struggling to pull its head out of the pit. The army is under pressure. However, Su Ran slowed down unconsciously. He lowered his head slightly and looked at the distorted girl with silver-gray skin in his arms. Don't you want to live? Think. Meng Yibai coughed violently twice. Her eye was still changing violently, as if it foreshadowed a violent collision of the two consciousnesses in her body. However, at a certain moment, her eyes returned to normal. She looked at Su Ran and said firmly, "No. I don't want to. 3 days ago, I just woke up from the seaside, as if I was born again, remember nothing, full of joy, so I want to feel the world, want to live. But these days, my memory is coming back a little bit. So I keep thinking, why do I want to live? I didn't find the answer, because I couldn't find the answer. When you were in a coma, I could lie on the grounds that I wanted to ensure your safety. Now, I have become your burden, and I may even become an even bigger burden in the future. The burden of many people. All the people I care about are dead, and the people who care about me are gone. A person who no one defines you should live, a person who is full of pain. Why should you live? But I'm still weak. I don't have the guts to kill myself, so, it's time. Su Ran, it's time for me to die. Kill me, please kill me." The girl raised her head slightly. Her eyes seemed to be glowing brightly. Silence. Su Ran was retreating, and after a long silence, he said decisively, "No." Meng Yibai was slightly stunned. Why? No. In this case, I will have a showdown. I am not an ordinary soldier. Have you heard of the Xinjiang fleet? I am the commander and founder of the Xinjiang fleet, and the reason why you and I appeared on the seaside together on the beach, it was because you blew up my flagship, Yuncheng, and brought me to this point. Su Ran said, "So, if you want to die now, wouldn't it be too bad for me, eh? Meng Yibai was a little confused. Su Ran said, "So, you can't die. Not only can't you die, but you have to work for me, otherwise, wouldn't it be a big loss for me? As for the queen in your body, believe me, there is a way in my fleet, and maybe we can use it against the swarm." Su Ran really passed this thought at this moment. Before that, he was worried that the swarms would gather to attack the sluggish fleet. If their fleet could hold the queen of the swarms, they would have a way to defeat the enemy, but now we just... Before Meng Yibai could finish his sentence, he covered his head and screamed violently and painfully. Su Ran was also unambiguous. He directly took out the special tranquilizer that had been prepared from the space of his watch, and immediately gave Meng Yibai a shot. After one injection, her expression and state changed, and she seemed to be drowsy, but it could be seen that one injection was not enough. Su Ran immediately gave another injection. This time, Meng Yibai closed his eyes and fell into drowsy sleep, but Su Ran turned his head immediately, and led Meng Yibai all the way to the other side. Seeing this, the praying mantis-like monster slowly approaching from behind jumped out like a bolt of purple lightning wings, and charged towards Su Ran at high speed at low altitude. However, it slammed into a piece of steel. A huge fighter plane appeared out of thin air in the lobby on the first floor of this building, and the comet, a mantis-like monster that was caught off guard, slammed into the earth and slammed right into it. And this is exactly the Falcon fighter that Su Ran built before. After a long delay, it was finally completed. Of course, Su Ran is not the kind of person who acts purely on the heat of his head. The reason for the waiting and pause just now is that the production of the Wind Falcon attack aircraft is almost completed. At the same time, the cannon of the Falcon attack aircraft spit out furious flames, piercing through the direction of the electromagnetic guards all the way, killing a bloody path at high speed with a roar of the machine gun. Su Ran soared all the way, piercing through the buildings, strangling the locust swarms in the air. More than 1,000 migratory locusts may pose a greater threat to the human Su Ran and Meng Yibai in a single soldier state, but in front of the machine gun, it is really not that much of a threat. Su Ran quickly broke out of the battle formation of these migratory locusts, deeply feeling that technology is still better than dark energy. However, he didn't fly too high. After all, Meng Yibai was the target. If he flew too high, he would become the target of the Sky Brood. Isn't that self-defeating? But even so, there were still a group of migratory locusts chasing after him, so Su Ran plunged into the tall buildings in San Diego, circling vertically and horizontally, making time with these migratory locusts. However, Su Ran had just passed a 50-story skyscraper. From his oblique position, this building was forcibly smashed through by some kind of huge existence. It was a huge devourer, whistling out from the other end of the 50-story building. With a monstrous momentum, it pierced through as hard as a piece of tofu, and made a huge roar that shook the world. With many pieces of broken building materials billowing and splashing, he opened his mouth wide and bit Su Ran's Wind Falcon attack aircraft in one bite. At that scene, it was as if the Leviathan's giant monster was devouring it. And Su Ran's Wind Falcon attack plane was right in the middle of its huge mouth, and it was impossible to avoid it for a while. Chapter 28. The huge mouth of the devourer poured down, and the saliva fell on the shield of the Wind Falcon attack aircraft first, and evaporated, and even through the shield and the battleship, Su Ran seemed to be able to smell what was coming out of the huge mouth. The monstrous stench and bloody smell. It's bloody. I've touched it like this. Su Ran's face was ugly. His position was right in the middle of the devourer's huge mouth. In this case, he could only be swallowed first, and then make other plans. If it is swallowed, it is also very troublesome. But at this moment, the front windshield of Su Ran's Wind Falcon attack plane was suddenly illuminated by fire. Dozens of missiles swept across the sky and suddenly entered the arena, hitting the huge roaring monster from the side. During the explosion, its flesh and blood were splashed. The indistinct devourer howler fell to one side, slamming heavily on the building behind. The tall building began to collapse obliquely. Su Ran, on the other hand, took this opportunity to raise the altitude, and drove the Wind Falcon attack plane across the air in a graceful arc. Immediately afterwards, Su Ran's gaze shifted to the far side in the low-altitude buildings not far from here. A huge battleship is slowly passing through the real body from optical invisibility, like a giant beast slowly cruising out of its hiding place. That was Lin Yuandong's frigate. It was this frigate that just opened fire across the line, pushing back the devourer with all its strength. The fleet did not know when it had arrived in San Diego. They came much sooner than expected. The frigate immediately shot 2 tractor beams, instantly covering Su Ran's Wind Falcon attack aircraft, pulling him towards the frigate. At the same time, The United States also learned of the information that the Xinjiang fleet appeared in San Diego for the first time. Lieutenant General Noah was inexplicably surprised. Is the fleet going to make a move? Contact that warship immediately, and I want to talk to Commander Suran. In his mind, since the fleet appeared, Suran, the commander of the fleet, should already be sitting on the bridge of the battleship at this moment, but unfortunately, his call request has not received any reply for a long time. At this time, Suran hadn't arrived at the bridge yet, and Lin Yuandong, the commander of the frigate, was not on the bridge either. After confirming Suran's identity, Lin Yuandong was so excited that he immediately ran out of the bridge and went to the back cabin of the frigate to meet Suran. As soon as the Wind Falcon attack plane came to a complete stop, a large circle of people surrounded it. There's the fleet crew, there's the medical staff. Blah blah blah. The door of the Fang Falcon attack plane opened, and when Suran came down with a sleepy Meng Yibei on his back, he was surprised to see such a battle, and when everyone saw him, they were even more shocked. The people who were originally surrounded by him all scattered away because everyone saw Meng Yibei with Suran behind his back. The dull silver gray skin really left a deep impression on everyone. Li Yilan came out more and more, and said, Suran, are you being coerced? Do you think I look like I'm being coerced? At this moment, Lin Yuandong finally rushed over, looked left and right, and asked in surprise, you captured it? Well, almost. As soon as Suran said this, everyone in the field was slightly relieved, and the tense atmosphere finally eased. Li Yilan said, what's going on? It's a long story. Let's send her to the fleet's detention room first, and take care of her with the highest standards, but don't hurt her first. Suran first ordered. Meng Yibei didn't know when he would wake up, let alone whose consciousness is dominant this time. It is undoubtedly the best choice to control it first. Suran issued a series of orders, and everyone became busy. Someone picked up Meng Yibei from Suran, and Suran, Lin Yuandong and Li Yilan left the rear apron side by side, and walked towards the bridge. While walking, Suran asked, what's this? You'll arrive just now. Indeed, the fleet is a bit stuck. Lin Yuandong said, and we wanted to confirm it through our channels. After all, Lao Mei suddenly said that you're on their side, which is a bit too suspicious. If this it's Lao Mei who wants to swallow the fleet's trap, the current fleet can't afford to lose. However, we noticed that San Diego was attacked by the Sky Brood, so I came here immediately. Suran said silently, how many battleships are left in our fleet? 2 destroyers, 1 bomber, 2 Apocalypse, and the frigate we are sitting on now. However, Tongmaya Oku's Mandala and another bomber are still being repaired in the Dongying area, and they have not yet been repaired. Back to our headquarters in Xinjiang, and now, apart from Lao Qiao's severely damaged enlightenment ship that has not yet been repaired, the other 2 destroyers at the headquarters are basically capable of sailing. This time it was Li Yilan who took over. Going over the topic, he quickly summed up the current situation, and immediately said, besides, it is not peaceful now. The global insect swarm has now entered a state of complete shrinkage, but the pressure on our fleet is increasing day by day, and the Huaxia side is continuing to exert pressure on us. The pressure, people in the fleet are panicked. Yuan Lichen told me to tell you as soon as I see you. Speaking of this, Li Yilan paused for a moment, and looked at the members of the inland squadron following them. Seeing this, they nodded slightly and retreated a certain distance. Suran was a little surprised. It's only been 3 days since the end of the war. Has it already reached this point? He said. What does Yuan Lichen want to say? Taking advantage of your life and death, Huaxia is infiltrating our people on a large scale. The high-level people are fine, but the people at the bottom have been shaken. Within a few days they intend to our fleet. Li Yilan said. Lin Yuandong frowned and said, Suran, don't worry, my brothers are all my brothers from top to bottom of the fleet, there is no other way. But why didn't Lao Yuan talk to me about this kind of thing? Because I'm the deputy of the Yuncheng. Li Yilan replied with a smile. It can be seen that Suran is still alive, and she is actually in a good mood. However, what she was thinking at this moment was, the real reason is that Yuan Lichen and I are afraid of your wild thoughts. Suran nodded. He was not too worried about this, and he could understand Huaxia's actions. However, Suran believes that as long as he is in the fleet will be as stable as Mount Tai, and that's good too. At least it can help him screen out a group of vacillating foes in the fleet. But besides this, Suran has one more thing that is most concerned and urgent. Leave these aside. What about the Spore life? What are they doing now? Chapter 29. Return to the fleet. After a few words, they had already arrived at the bridge of the frigate. Before Lin Yuandong could give Suran an answer, a sailor rushed over and said, Commander, Your Excellency, Lieutenant Li, The boss, Lieutenant General No of San Diego, requested to communicate with us 2 minutes ago. Look, Lin Yuanduang looked at Su Ran. Su Ran said, have you brought a 10 Nightingale aircraft? Lin Yuanduang smiled wryly when he heard the words, now there are not enough Nightingale aircraft in the fleet, how can I give 10 to others? This made Su Ran's expression slightly awkward, and at this time, they also came to the main control screen in the center. From the above picture, it can be clearly seen that with the outcropping of the frigate, the Sky Brood in the sky is dividing a large force to attack this place edge close. Apparently, realizing that their queen had been brought into the fleet, the Sky Brood stopped pretending and was about to start risking their lives. Before that, they were obviously confusing the US side, and put on a posture of storming San Diego. Who would have thought that their purpose was to welcome back their queen? Because of this, although their actions on Su Ran's side were not so obvious, they sent all of them are first-class ruthless characters. However, it is different now. With a battleship standing here, the Sky Brood is not in a hurry looking at the sky from here. At this time, even a large-scale battle group of Skywatchers and Whalers began to move in this direction. The dark clouds in the entire sky are moving. The Sky Brood is going to give up San Diego completely, chasing and fighting Su Ran desperately. However, what I am taking away now is the queen of others. Logically speaking, it is normal for the swarm to go berserk. Lin Yuandong still didn't quite understand the situation, and said, sure enough, it was right to sneak into the city before. This worm hates our fleet. Once my battleship comes out, San Diego will stop fighting. Is it all going to hide us? Su Ran shook her head and said, reply to Lieutenant General Noah, we have already brought 10 Nightingale aircraft to complete the transaction, but in view of the current battle situation in San Diego, the fleet has taken into account the life and death of the entire city of San Diego, and now we want to lure away the Sky Mother nest. At that moment, the crew member replied like this. At this point, the frigate began to turn around, preparing to withdraw from the San Diego battlefield. Immediately Lieutenant General Noah received Su Ran's reply at the first time, and immediately said, tell your excellency, Commander, that we are willing to cooperate with the fleet to annihilate the Sky Brood in one fell swoop in the city of San Diego. However, your excellency, Lieutenant General, the fleet has unilaterally cut off communication, and began to accelerate, about to leave San Diego. Noah sighed, your excellency, Commander, still doesn't seem to believe in the combat power of our U.S. military, but this time I understand why this commander, your excellency, is so famous. The combat capabilities of the Sky Brood battle group are amazing. He is willing to stop the Sky Brood for our safety in San Diego. He is really a remarkable person. Lieutenant General Noah seemed to admire Su Ran from the bottom of his heart at this moment. Of course, what he doesn't know is that the real purpose of this Sky Brood battle group appearing here is not to capture San Diego and embezzle the U.S. military at all, and now they are not attracted by Su Ran, but their goal is Su Ran. However, after Su Ran's words, he turned himself into a good person and covered everything up, and in the sky, the frigate was turning. It's not that Su Ran didn't see Lau Mei's strategic purpose of wanting to swallow this war brood in one go. He was afraid that if a fight really broke out, he wouldn't be able to swallow this war brood for a while, and instead attracted more people. There are many high-level combat units of the swarm, and it may not be certain who will swallow who. Although the command system of the insect swarm is now disintegrated, it can be seen from the actions of the Sky Brood that the advanced brood still has self-judgment and mobility. The queen is here, wouldn't it be a swarm of bees to settle accounts with herself? Therefore, at this time, whoever hits is a fool. The attack on the Sky Brood was beyond everyone's plan. Su Ran boarded the frigate in order to return to Xinjiang Special Zone immediately. The frigate's full speed was above the Sky Brood, and soon the Sky Brood was left behind, never to be seen again. According to the radar, the Sky Brood attack group stopped chasing after a period of time. It was only 3 days after the frigate landed in Xinjiang, but Su Ran still felt as if it had been a lifetime away in midair. Su Ran saw the empty scene on the tarmac. Surprisingly, apart from the normal logistics staff, Yuan Lichen didn't arrange any extra pickup staff. Only one person who was unexpected by Su Ran, that was Li Changzhao, the secretary next to Jin Xian. He was still wearing a decent suit, as if there was no difference from when Su Ran saw him for the first time, but he appeared outside the exit passage below the frigate. As the first group of bridge command staff to leave the frigate, it was him that Su Ran saw immediately. Li Changzhao nodded to Su Ran from afar. The two of them were a few steps faster than the others. Walking in front, Su Ran asked, Jin Xian wants to see me. No. Minister Kim really wants to see you, but he can't see you anymore. Li Changzhao smiled. What does it mean? Has no one told you yet? Yesterday afternoon, Minister Jin received the transfer order from Kyoto, and he has already rushed to Kyoto this morning. Li Changzhou smiled. Speaking of which, it is because the fleet is booming this time, and the insect swarms have shrunk in an all-round way. No more attacks, otherwise, where's the possibility of going to Kyoto? A transfer order from Kyoto? Why is Minister Kim going to Kyoto? For this battle of the Xinjiang fleet, someone must be responsible for it. Li Changzhou smiled, but this sentence shocked Su Ran slightly, and he didn't know what to say for a while. The two fell into silence, and Li Changzhou smiled and said, "Your Excellency, you don't have to blame yourself. Minister Jin is full of praise for your battle, and he doesn't mean to complain. Besides, this matter has nothing to do with you." Su Ran was silent for a moment, then said, "Then you are. Although Minister Jin has rushed to the capital, he thinks that you may not be dead, so he keeps me here. If you come back, let me bring you a word and ask you a question." Li Changzhou paused slightly. When he said this, he stopped and said, "Your Excellency, Commander, Minister Jin asked you. In the Battle of the Brood in the Sky, your fleet used the signal as an anchor point to penetrate the boundary between three-dimensional and pseudo-four-dimensional. So now, for this planet, Commander, what is your anchor, Your Excellency?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 30 is gone. The words brought by Li Changzhou caused Su Ran to fall into silence for a long time. In his opinion, Jin Xian is not a problem, but a reminder. What he is reminding himself is, have you thought about what you are going to do? Today is different from the past. Although the Xinjiang fleet still bears the name of the Xinjiang fleet, as the fleet becomes stronger and more independent, it has gradually become another entity independent of Huaxia, but it's awkward to be in it, and as the commander of such a fleet, Su Ran has won consecutive battles and the central brood of the swarm has been defeated. It's time for him to think about the real future. What is he anchoring on? How do we get along with human beings and the earth? Although Su Ran is not an alien creature as the public thinks at all, his fleet has jumped above this planet. At this moment, these are all things he should consider. Only after thinking clearly about these things, can he, in order to truly have a clear attitude whether it is to other human beings or to China. Su Ran took a deep breath and said, "Does Minister Jin want me to answer this question now?" Li Changzhou shook his head. Minister Jin said that if there is a chance to see you again, he hopes to have a good chat with you, but he didn't say that he expected to know the answer to the question. I see. Thank you, Minister Jin, for me. If he has anything to do in Beijing, you can contact me at any time. The fleet is his friend. Su Ran said the fleet is his friend. Li Changzhou read this sentence silently, and said with a smile, "It's such a domineering sentence, as expected of your Excellency, Commander. Okay, I will convey this sentence on my behalf, so don't bother me." Next, Li Changzhou said goodbye and left. Su Ran took a deep look at him, and then walked forward, through the passageway to leave the ship, all the way back to the fleet headquarters. Only then did Su Ran see Yuan Lichen. He brought Qiao Xianjun and Hu Hu to wait here for a long time, but there was nothing else to do. Yuan Lichen came up and said, "There is an emergency." Seeing his solemn expression, Su Ran actually wailed in her heart, "Why is there no peace in this day? It's not as chic as when I was in Liaomai." Of course, Su Ran was just thinking about this kind of words. At the moment, he first ordered Li Yilan to take someone to take care of Meng Yibei, and arranged for the core medical personnel in the fleet to analyze her situation. Then, Su Ran followed Yuan Licheng and the others returned to their office. Su Ran said, "What's the situation? Is the fleet in turmoil?" No. Yuan Licheng shook his head and said, "It's spore life." Hearing this, Su Ran frowned slightly. Before the fleet had set sail, he had asked about the life of the spores, but was interrupted. But hearing these words, Su Ran's heart sank. These alien spore beings don't move as long as they move, and every move will make a big move. They infiltrated Fugalo this time, and even the iron barrel-like swarms were not found. This is of course also because of Fugalo's independence and particularity, but it can also be seen that the spore life is indeed not the same generation. Su Ran asked, "What happened to the spore life?" After the Pacific War, Fugalo directly abandoned the fleet, and later confirmed that they went to Australia. According to the information we intercepted from China, the purpose of the spore life going to Australia should be to carry out large-scale breeding. Increase individuals. Yuan Licheng said, And not only that, during the gap period between the end of the Pacific War and our return flight, all the spore lives trapped in the new capital also ran away. It is not surprising that spore life will proliferate. Although for life at their level, the number of individuals does not represent the strength of civilization, but for a fugitive, of course, the more individuals the better. There has always been a fleet with the two major threats of the swarm and the swarm. The spore life did not dare to make big moves, but now, both the fleet and the spore life were at risk, and it was time for the spore life to do whatever it wanted. But what Yuan Licheng said later surprised Su Ran. All the spore life in Xinjiang City have run away? I remember that Xinjiang sent 2 regiments to guard them. There is also an automatic defense system for our fleet. Once will the spore life intruders registered in the system be shot immediately when they leave the safe area defined by the system? Frajialuo didn't come. There are indeed 2 regiments guarding the spore life of the new capital city, but the new capital city was attacked by insect swarms before, and the manpower was insufficient, and most of the troops were transferred away. That's not right. Our automatic defense system has locked the ground passage in all directions. How did they escape? Did they grow wings and fly? They really have wings and fly. Yuan Licheng smiled wryly, and said, do you still remember the flying saucer you gave to the military, the one Academician Li has been using? That's right. It was the flying saucer that landed in the former Xinjiang prison, where the spore life was held, and picked them up. Yuan Licheng said, the only thing that can be confirmed now is that the spore life played a big game, which should be there as planned earlier. The flying saucer has been almost infiltrated by them, and it was only exposed at a critical moment, and the bottom line was drawn to achieve their key purpose. Su Ran frowned and said, although the flying saucer has been used by military researchers, and the guards are all commissioners sent by the government, it is in our fleet after all. I remember we gave them a batch thinking shield device. Do you know where all those devices are going? Yuan Licheng said, except for Academician Li and a few important scientific and technical personnel, the high-level, rich and powerful people, you just send them things by head, things it is impossible to stay in their hands. Even if Minister Jin knows about this, he can only turn a blind eye. These words made Su Ran fall into silence. Logically speaking, he should not have thought of this kind of thing, but the problem is that he has not paid much attention to Academician Li. First, he used Academician Li to test the flying saucer in order to maintain the increasingly tense relationship with Huaxia at that time. He came here to confuse the worms and prove that he really wanted to leave the Earth, but he didn't expect that they would take advantage of this place. Su Ran couldn't help sighing, and said, as far as I know, there are thousands of spore life locked in the former Xinjiang prison, right? The flying saucer can barely hold it, so they should have met in Australia. Are they gathering in Australia now? When asked about this point, Yuan Licheng became a little vague, hesitating for a long time, then looked at Su Ran, and said, they all ran away now. Ask for a wave of genuine support. Chapter 31. This is too arrogant. Run away? What do you mean? Su Ran was puzzled, but at this moment, Yuan Licheng seemed a little hesitant. Qiao Xiangjun, who was still being spoken in the back, hugged his shoulders and said, it literally means that after the 2 groups of spore life converged in Australia, they proliferated a large number of individuals, and seemed to invade the 2 Australian mother nests of the insect swarm, and then run away, went straight to space. Run away. Su Ran was taken aback. What the hell is this? The spore life converged at one place, engulfed a large number of life forms and spaceships, and then escaped from the Earth. Su Ran smacked her mouth and murmured, I thought they were going to do something like a general attack on the Earth. I thought so too at the beginning, but it didn't happen. Yuan Licheng said depressedly, I sent a group of space unmanned reconnaissance planes to track them down, but they were all rushing to leave the Earth and the solar system. The aircraft couldn't catch up at all, and now they have completely lost track of them at this moment. Su Ran understood that Yuan Licheng was squeamish. It was because he felt that he was not good at doing things, and he miscalculated the plan of spore life, so he felt a little ashamed. Although the actions of the spore life are a bit jaw-dropping, they do agree with their style and thinking. After all, from the first day Su Ran came into contact with them, their purpose is to escape and leave the Earth, and now they are stealing a flying saucer. Zai stole some insect nests, and finally got his wish. Su Ran frowned and remained silent for a moment, but suddenly she patted the table and said, there must be some of them in the city, find them out for me. Yuan Licheng said, I also thought of this, but the new capital city now has a population of more than 100,000, how can we find it? And the main body of them has already escaped, so it is useless to find it out. Su Ran shook her head. Do as I said, arrange a destroyer to broadcast over the city of Xinjiang with high power and say that I am back. If they don't want to be chased and killed by me all over the universe, they can take the initiative to come out to see me. Yuan Lichen frowned, glanced at Su Ran, but didn't ask any more questions, just nodded silently, and said, okay. I'll do it next. Su Ran has his own considerations. He wants to know why the spore life is running so fast, like a bereaved dog, and his move is also intended to deceive them. After all, in the impression of this group of spore life, he is also Hulo is quite a top technology boss, saying that he is chasing and killing all over the universe has weight. The spore life is as stable as an old dog, and there is a great chance that he will not dare to hide and seek with Su Ran again. Arranged for this, Su Ran asked, also, what's going on with the internal turmoil in the fleet? Yuan Lichen said, since you asked, Li Yilin also told you, right? That's the situation. Huaxia wants to hold the fleet in its hands, but at present, only the middle and lower classes have been infiltrated. Although there are many people, but it still can't shake our foundation, especially Lao Lin and the others, they are completely a piece of iron. Of course, if you really died in battle and didn't come back, maybe the situation will be different. It was only after suffering heavy losses that I wanted to take control of the Xinjiang fleet in one fell swoop, but now you are back. Yuan Lichen sold Lin Yuanduang a favor, and Lin Yuanduang smiled. It's all because of your good teaching. Commander Yuan Lichen nodded slightly, and asked, my people are also on the move, the list is already in my hands, what are you going to do? Su Ran also smiled, and then, his expression and tone suddenly became cold and serious, and he said, kill. Everyone shivered slightly. Su Ran said, although I have always built a fleet based on the idea of a big family, this does not mean that I am a philanthropist. Those who do not take action will be repatriated, but whoever takes action, no matter who they are, will be killed in full. As a warning, Xiao, as Su Ran said, he slowly stood up from his seat and said, everyone, the swarm is defeated, but the fleet is still in danger, and in the future, we will usher in an unprecedented period of development. And if we want to survive the current crisis and soar in the development period, we need our fleet to be a piece of iron afterwards. Su Ran looked at Qiao Xiangjun, regained his composure, and said, old Qiao, I know, you have been a double agent for a while, right? Now is the time to make a real choice, whether to stay in the fleet or belong to the fleet. Huaxia, I will not stop you. After saying these words, Su Ran immediately turned around and left his office at the fleet headquarters, leaving the people in the room behind looking at each other, lost in thought. Li Ji was striding out of his military area office building. He knew that Su Ran came back today, but the atmosphere between the fleet and the military is not harmonious. The new big man who replaced Minister Jin is reorganizing the work direction of the new capital, and the situation is changing quietly in this situation. Even if Li Ji really wanted to congratulate Su Ran and discuss the excitement of this battle, he could only keep his own place. Honestly, after all, in front of the word soldier status, there is the word Huaxia. The situation has changed, and Li Ji only hopes that the situation will change for the better. However, it is said that His Excellency the Commander did not die in the Pacific War but was welcomed back by the fleet, and that the new big shot hadn't eaten all day, and everyone knew the annoyance in his heart, and Li Ji was actually very annoyed at this time. The reason for his annoyance had something to do with Su Ran's return. At this moment, he walked out of the office building and looked up at a slowly floating destroyer in the sky. With an extremely ugly expression on his face, the destroyer was broadcasting at a super loud volume. The spore life lurking in the new capital. Listen up, our commander has returned to the new capital. You'd better stand up and see our commander. Otherwise, no matter where you flee, our commander will pursue you until you are destroyed. Lurking in the corners of Li Ji's mouth twitched, looking at the destroyer in the sky broadcasting throughout the city. What did this happen? Isn't this sick? If you broadcast people's spore life throughout the city, will they listen to you and stand up? And this copywriting is too rubbish. Why is it like a bumpkin shouting? Moreover, this is the new capital city. Isn't this too arrogant? Li Ji was furious. He stared at the destroyer in the sky for a long time before returning to his office angrily. He didn't know who he was angry with. Chapter 32. Your Excellency, Commander is brilliant. After coming out of his office, Su Ran went directly to check on Meng Yibei's situation. Meng Yibei's situation is too special. Su Ran is still a little worried. Before the frigate landed, Su Ran knew about the possible harassment of the swarm and asked Li Yilin to arrange it. There was nothing to worry about here for the time being. However, The situation on Meng Yibei's side is still relatively stable. The girl with silver-gray skin is lying quietly in the medical warehouse of the fleet headquarters. Her body is imprisoned on the medical bed by special equipment, and she is still in the medical bed that Su Ran gave her before. Under the effect of the medicine, his eyes were closed tightly, and he did not wake up for a long time when he came here. Zhang Xian, the person in charge of the fleet's medical department, walked up with a look of embarrassment, and said, "Your Excellency, Commander, your smooth return really made the entire fleet rejoice. I represent the entire fleet's medical staff. Center, salute you." Su Ran glanced at her when she heard the words, and said with a smile, "How come you have learned to speak an official accent now?" Zhang Xian was recruited by Su Ran himself. He was in his 50s and was a well-known director of Xinjiang Local University Hospital before the end of the world. She shook her head and said, "This is not an official tone, I mean it sincerely, and I want to say, we can't handle this female patient here." The corners of Su Ran's mouth twitched. He didn't expect that. He just stopped here, and the other party started sending out hot potatoes after a few words. "What's the matter?" Su Ran asked she. "Well, I don't know what to say." Zhang Xian said, "When Adjutant Li brought this patient, he said it was Meng Yibei, right? We just gave her a preliminary scan, the results were astonishing." Speaking of this, Zhang Xian stopped talking. Su Ran was still surprised. Turning his head, he saw the other party looking at him eagerly. Obviously, he didn't dare to continue Su Ran's sight and said, "It's okay, I know a little about her situation." "Okay." Zhang Xian said, "After our inspection, we came to the conclusion that this person is not human. Even if she is, she can only be regarded as a human and a half. Don't get me wrong, what we mean by cursing, her silver gray, although her skin looks and feels like a human being, it is by no means our skin. The three-layer structure of her epidermis, dermis and subcutaneous tissue is plausible to us. Our preliminary laboratory analysis results show that cells are making up her skin. When using her skin, it acts as an adhesive, blending a kind of tough and organic material that I have never seen before, and the two blend together like woven skin. At this time, she used her original human cells and an outer skin made by another organism that is completely different from our cortical structure. And, most crucially, it can be confirmed that the cells of another organism are 97% similar to the Zerg cells in our database." Speaking of this, Zhang Xian couldn't help but pause slightly, and looked towards Su Ran with some caution. Su Ran said, "Go ahead, and her internal structure is even more so. Although it is still a human model, the inside has almost been replaced." Zhang Xian said, "It seems that she is simply a living human body as a template and an artificial human made from bugs." Zhang Xian thought for a long time before he came up with such a word. After thinking about it, he said, "And it's very high grade." Su Ran frowned and said, "What is high grade?" Everyone knows that the swarms are produced on an assembly line, but you should also know that their assembly line is not the way we produce weapons and parts in our machinery factory, but also uses hatching. Therefore, in essence, the mass production of the swarm is also a normal breeding process, but the swarm speeds up this process with powerful biotechnology, and they use powerful genes. The technology has corrected it. Otherwise, there will be a large number of defective products in the mass-produced organisms. Only individuals with complete genes can avoid problems in this mass production reproduction. Because of the limited types of battles, it is not easy to modify a perfect gene that can be mass-produced. Zhang Xian said, "The reason why I say that Meng Yibei's transformation is very high is because she is not mass-produced, but it should be created by worms using a surgical processing method similar to ours, so, every link of her body has been strictly controlled and adjusted." Su Ran nodded. He wasn't surprised at all. After all, this is the Queen's body, and it's normal to be strictly built. However, since the swarm had been so careful when creating this body, why did Meng Yibei's consciousness compete for control of the body? Seeing that Zhang Xian still had something to say, Su Ran thought that the answer to her question might lie in what the other party would say next, so she said, "Go ahead." Zhang Xian said, "According to this situation, Meng Yibei should be an artificial human transformed by an absolute insect swarm, but her brain and nervous system are all made of human beings. Transformed for absolute basics. That's the most anomalous thing. I think it's probably related to the swarm's ability to retain and expand her dark energy." Su Ran took another look at Zhang Xian. Zhang Xian said, "I've seen the black box of the Yunchang before it crashed. Lieutenant Li said she was the one from that day." After that, Zhang Xian didn't say anything, but Su Ran understood. He nodded slightly, and said, "That's right. She was the last straw created by the swarm to crush the Yunchen, but after that, she showed something unusual. Her human side came to life. So it's Meng Yibei? Zhang Xian was slightly surprised, and asked tentatively, "So, Commander, it's because of her that you returned to the fleet after 3 years." "It was because I was rushed to Liu Mei's side, and I had a fever and became confused." Su Ran coughed dryly, put her hands behind her back, nodded, and said, "That's it." Zhang Xian chatted repeatedly, feeling that he had come into contact with something extraordinary. Take this opportunity to leave the fleet, not only to find out the root cause of the bug swarm robots that attacked the fleet, but also to make the restless people in the Xinjiang fleet think you are dead. They all jumped out and cleared the fleet. Your Excellency Commander is really brilliant. Don't worry, I will never tell anyone about these things today. The corners of Su Ran's mouth twitched, but he still nodded expressionlessly and said, "This is the best. P.S. Well, the supporting role surnamed Zheng is here. Also, ask for a guaranteed monthly pass at the beginning of the month." Chapter 33 The Swarm Experiment. Only then did Zhang Xian regain his composure, and his eyes fell on Meng Yibei in the translucent medical cabin, and said, "If this is the case, there are traces of her awakening of body consciousness. According to Shenzhen Research Institute, the conclusion is that the control of dark energy by humans is mainly due to the new round of development of the human nervous system under the infection of the Zerg virus. In fact, many people have a misunderstanding about this, saying that it is the Zerg virus, but this does not mean that it is a biochemical weapon used by the swarm, or a virus that can cause the swarm to catch a cold or a fever. This just means that it comes from humans, but it does not mean that it is useful to humans. It is like the ancient saying that someone after getting the plague, people died after being infected with the bacteria or viruses in rats, but the virus and the rats themselves were in a state of peaceful siege. It could kill humans, but it could not harm the rats themselves. And it is this virus, while having an irreversible impact on some human beings, it also gave some people superpowers. This is the awakened. Shenzhen Institute of Dark Energy has already put forward a certain possibility about this. This virus has inspired the dark energy of human beings, then it is possible to use it to combine the dark energy of human beings with a swarm, so that the swarm can also have this an incredible power. Speaking of this, Zhang Xian paused slightly, and said with a complicated expression, "When I saw this before, I really didn't expect that I would see such a combination here so soon." Su Ran nodded slightly. He realized that the Shenzhen Institute of Dark Energy should have already concluded that the swarm was conducting research in this area based on the swarm's arrest of awakened people, but it was only because of the relationship between Huaxia and his side. It's subtle, so they didn't get any definite information on their side. But Zhang Xian still continued, "The swarm wants to use the hands of humans to pry open the door of dark energy. The current research shows that human beings' perception of dark energy comes from the brain and nervous system. During the transformation process, part of the brain and nervous system were preserved, and this may be the reason why Meng Yibei was able to resurrect in this way. Their technology may be complete, but the soul and brain are difficult for anyone. The place to search and find out. However, these are mostly my speculations. After all, unless you, Commander, allow us to perform a human body dissection operation on her, it will be difficult for us to figure out what is going on inside her." Su Ran shook her head and said, "This is a rare top dark energy awakener. If she can be included in the fleet, it will be even more powerful." "Your Excellency, Commander, I understand what you mean." Zhang Xian looked at Meng Yibei in sight and said, "We will do our best to stabilize her state, with the premise of first confirming whether her human consciousness can last for a long time." "Okay." Su Ran nodded slightly, and said, "Be careful. Her dark energy intensity should have reached or even exceeded the maximum limit of level 18, calibrated by the Shenzhen Dark Energy Research Institute. Once she goes berserk, the consequences will be disastrous." "So, speaking of this," Su Ran paused for a moment, as if hesitating for a moment. Kay said, "So, if the situation develops in an uncontrollable direction, I will give you the power to dispose of it at will. Also, I have some related medicines here, which may come in handy. You can send someone to my office to pick them up tomorrow." After finishing speaking, Su Ran turned and left, and Zhang Xian sent him out the door. Outside the door, Li Yilin had been waiting for a long time. Su Ran happened to be looking for her too, so he asked, "How is the defense arrangement? Has the San Diego Sky Brood battle group caught up?" Li Yilin shook her head. "Didn't catch up. They gave up after chasing hundreds of nautical miles, and now they disappeared again. The defense order has been ordered, and the second level alert in the fleet However, before you return to the fleet, there are many minor Zerg spies are trying to get close to the fleet headquarters, and we believe that some high-ranking brood wants to take advantage of the emptiness of our fleet to annihilate us in one go. Yeah. I've thought of this too. It's better to strengthen your guard and be ready to go to war at any time. Suran really has a feeling that she has too much debt to worry about. The current fleet may not be able to defend against the attack of the swarm, but now he's holding the queen of the swarm, which can be regarded as a killer weapon. However, thinking of Meng Yibei, Suran didn't really hope that there would be a day when she would really take her as a hostage. Suran nodded, and only then asked curiously, "You're looking for me? It's time to eat," Li Yilin said angrily. "Master Captain." Suran was slightly surprised, but he did not refuse, but followed Li Yilin forward. Li Yilin's destination is not the fleet's canteen, but her single dormitory. In the fleet, Li Yilin's dormitory is one of the few places with a separate kitchen. The main reason for this is, pushing open the door, Suran heard two calls. "Big brother." Suran, these two people are none other than the two children, Xinyu and Li Wenyu, and that rather blunt name, of course, is Li Wenyu, a silly boy at this moment. Zhang Jianguo was also walking out from behind wearing an apron, and when he saw Suran, he smiled and said, "Your Excellency, Commander, you haven't tasted my craft yet, have you?" Suran turned to look at Li Yilin. "I thought you were cooking." Li Yilin just smiled. "After the war is over, we should still live for a while, right? My captain." Suran touched her nose, picked up the two children one by one, and walked into the house. This meal was quite long. At the very beginning, at the dinner table, it was Suran who was talking about the previous Pacific War with the two children. He blurred the cruel part and described it in a more pure and innocent way, as if telling a story. The two children were fascinated by it, and Li Wenyu even waved his arms, saying, "In the future, I will become a person like Suran, command the fleet, and shoot aliens." Suran and the others all burst into laughter. Later, Suran drank cup after cup with the old man Zhang Jianguo, drank a lot, and talked about some things. Because of the dark energy, Suran's physical fitness was greatly enhanced. It's just that his face was slightly red, but Zhang Jianguo was already groggy in the end. Suran helped Li Yilin wash the dishes before leaving Li Yilin's house. It was getting dark. Li Yilin sent Zhang Jianguo and Li Wenyu away first, then stood at the door, looked at Suran, and said, "I didn't expect a captain to take the initiative to wash the dishes." Suran smiled slightly, patted Li Yilin on the shoulder, and said, "We walked from the Ice City together. You probably understand who I am. It really hasn't changed much." Li Yilin smiled, "But if it wasn't for this, I'm afraid there wouldn't be so many people following you wholeheartedly, right? Do you know that there has been a lot of turmoil in the fleet these 3 days? Come here, I got myself very drunk, and I feel sorry for your death in battle. You said that everyone came from the Ice City, and then we have to work together to form an alliance and gain a foothold in the fleet. Is there such a thing?" Suran's mouth twitched, and said, "This is really something Lin Yuandong can do." Chapter 34 Night Talk. Li Yilin smiled lightly, but Suran's expression gradually returned to calm. He looked at the woman in front of him and said softly, "It's been a long time." Li Yilin froze for a moment, then smiled and waved her hands, and closed the door and entered the room by herself. It wasn't until Suran left this dormitory building that he noticed that snow suddenly fell outside, fluttering and flying down from the sky. Under the bright lights of the fleet headquarters, every snowflake seemed to be shining, as if little stars fell from the sky. Suran didn't return to her room immediately, but strolled on the fleet headquarters, the runway and the tarmac outside the former Xinjiang airport. Except for the destroyer that was still broadcasting over the new capital, the remaining 3 warships of the fleet are here, but this number is still too small, and the whole airport looks empty and deserted, a desolate scene. As early as on the way back from San Diego, Suran had already confirmed the damage of the fleet when the fleet set off. The first fleet and the second fleet, including the Yuncheng, had a total of 3,763 people, including all fleet members including the commander. However, after this battle, they returned to Xinjiang alive. There are only 632 people. Of course, there are more than 200 people in Dongying, and the total is only 800 people in this battle. The fleet did suffer heavy losses. Not only the battleship was lost, but the people were also lost. There are many people here who have just been cultivated and can be used as talent. Suran still remembered the scene of the cafeteria at the headquarters being full before he left for the expedition. Standing in this snowy night at this moment, he suddenly felt very uncomfortable. After a long silence, he turned back to his office and called Yuan Licheng over. On the way, Yuan Licheng didn't keep Suran waiting too long. So he appeared in front of Su Ran in the middle of the night. He even joked, "Why? You called me so late because you want to have a secret talk with me." Su Ran shook her head and said, "In this battle, nearly 3,000 people died in the fleet, and many of them couldn't even find their bodies." This sentence made Yuan Licheng's face lose his smile. He was silent for a moment, and said, "I know, I have already comforted those who have family members, but we can't do anything more." Su Ran also nodded silently. "That's right, the fleet still has to move forward. But tomorrow everyone will be called together. Let's send them off together. I also have a few words to say. It is good I see." Yuan Licheng nodded and looked at Su Ran. "Your Excellency Commander, it's not just because of this matter that you called me over so late, right?" Su Ran said, "That's right. I have 4 things today, and this is just one of them. There are 3 more things. First, do you remember the alien creatures on the flying saucers we captured? Remember? Those who invaded our ship with flying saucers, caught 7 of them in total." Yuan Licheng said, "When the Zerg's dark energy killer swept across, the restricted area of our cell was affected and severely damaged. I'm sure that a few died on the spot, and the Yunchang crashed later, and the rest should have fallen into the sea. But our fleet is now limited in manpower, and we can't search for it at all." Su Ran nodded and said, "Remember this matter, even if one survives, it may be a time bomb. This news can be publicized to the world. And we can use our strength to find them and kill them." "I see." "And the second," Su Ran said, "it's time for our fleet to recruit people again. You and Zhang Jianguo are responsible for this matter. All people who enter the fleet must find out the source and see it from me." Yuan Licheng said, "Don't worry, today is different from the past. Although China's attitude towards the fleet has changed, after this battle, our reputation in Asia and even the world has reached an unprecedented level. It is not difficult to recruit troops. This time with more experience, I will work hard to check and ensure that the origin of those who join the fleet is clear." Su Ran smiled. "I have more experience. I thought, Lao Yuan, you have always been omnipotent." "I'm still studying," Yuan Licheng said with a wry smile. "I used to be an engineer in Bureau 8, but how many people do we want to recruit this time?" Su Ran stretched out 2 fingers. 2,000 people? Yuan Licheng nodded thoughtfully, and said, "That's true. The fleet has suffered heavy losses and it will be difficult to recover. 2,000 people should be more than enough." "No. What I want is 20,000 people. The ship's inland team, bridge staff, boarding medical team, maintenance team, engineering team." Su Ran took a deep breath, looked at Yuan Licheng in front of him, and said, "1 battleship of the Yunchang class, 2 frigates, and 4 Apocalypse ships. This is a battle group. I need you to recruit at least 3 battle group crew members." Yuan Licheng was shocked when he heard this. He is not a fool. Of course he understands what Su Ran's words mean. But, just go and recruit people, but what I said today, don't tell anyone." Su Ran said, "Besides that, there is a third and last thing. We are going to sell the battleship." Yuan Licheng hadn't finished digesting the matter just now, and unexpectedly Su Ran dropped another bomb. Yuan Licheng stammered a little. What? You want to sell a battleship? This is not appropriate. I want to sell destroyers to countries in need around the world." Su Ran said, "1 destroyer has 100,000 tons of resources." Yuan Licheng was a little dumbfounded, his mouth opened wide, but gradually, he came to his senses, because he realized that in the battle group that Su Ran just mentioned, there was no place for a destroyer at all. "So," Yuan Licheng said, "are you planning to sell the fleet's decommissioned destroyers to them?" "That's right," Su Ran said silently in her heart, "and it's a huge profit." Yuan Licheng became a little excited, and said, "This is indeed possible. It is indeed feasible. I have seen the strength of the Yunchang with my own eyes. With the addition of the frigate and the Enlightenment, it is indeed time for the destroyer to retire. But even the retired destroyer, for any country on the earth, it is a powerful black technology weapon that they cannot refuse, and it has an absolutely fatal attraction. So we will make a net profit." Su Ran said, "It seems that I don't need to explain any more." Yuan Licheng rubbed his hands, excited for a moment, but frowned again and said, "But this is not right. Although the swarms of insects have shrunk and the global situation has been greatly eased, my fleet has also suffered heavy losses. This is not the same as before the end of the world time. How do we spread the word across the globe?" Chapter 35 Teratogenic Creatures. This question actually gave Su Ran some headaches. He said, "I'm now thinking, maybe send a drone to broadcast? Like the broadcast in our new capital." Yuan Licheng frowned. a little non-committal to Suran's idea, but Suran said, and, taking this opportunity, I want to do another thing. Yuan Licheng said. What is it? I want to know the movement of advanced insect nests in the world and related information and location trends. Suran's idea is not groundless. There are two main reasons for wanting this. First, Meng Yibei, the queen of the swarm, is currently in his own fleet, and high-level worm nests may gather to attack at any time. Only by knowing yourself and the enemy can you win 100 battles. Secondly, it is because of the two Fugalists that suddenly appeared in the decisive battle on the Pacific battlefield before. According to Suran's memory, at this time of year, there should only be 2 or 3 Fugalists in the world, and some of them are on the other side of the planet. During the war, except for the 2 ships controlled by the Spore Life, the other 2 attacked the cloud. The city's Fugalo seemed to have popped up out of nowhere. Suran was sure that the swarm was also hiding its strength, and there was a hidden arsenal that was continuously building high-level troops. Suran is planning to find them all right now. In fact, the best time to confirm them should be the encirclement across the planet formed by the global swarm movement when the fleet attacked the Pacific Central Brood before. Under self-preservation, the swarm should no longer hide, but it's a pity that when the battle reached that point, Suran didn't have the manpower and energy to take care of so much, but he believed that the countries and survivor organizations that had intersected with these swarms would definitely record them and leave them behind. Download the data and information. As long as you collect them yourself, you can completely grasp the lifeline of the insect swarm on the entire Earth at that time. His fleet will be in the sky, and the Earth will be unobstructed. Yuan Licheng didn't ask so many questions, but nodded immediately. Okay. No problem. I don't think any survivor force or country will cover up their tracks for the swarm. Speaking of this, Yuan Licheng said, I don't recommend sending drones to broadcast. First, it seems to be ignored. Second, it is really difficult to carry out, and it is easy to be underestimated or misunderstood. Suran said, then it seems that you have an idea. That's right. Yuan Licheng said, I suggest that Tong Maya Okyu and her mandala go. Suran was a little surprised. She added an awakener. Exactly. Yuan Licheng laughed and said, don't just listen to her falling and donging as if she is in trouble, but in fact she is not. There are also quite a few opponents, but most of them are pro-friendly. That Ms. Hoshino has a lot of energy and Dongpu. In the previous war, she owed the kindness of Captain Tong, and now she is doing her best to help them. The treatment over there even exceeds that of our fleet. This is real. Of course it's true. Yuan Licheng said, yesterday I also talked to Captain Tong and confirmed the situation on their side. The corner of Suran's mouth couldn't help twitching. If Yuan Licheng hadn't said it, he really thought that Tong Maya Okyu was suffering and donging right now. What's the deal? So, it is undoubtedly the best choice to let her and her Datira set out to travel the world. Yuan Licheng said. Moreover, from the observations of the past 3 days, the current global situation, although the insect nest is in the biggest scale, is shrinking, but there are still many insect nests that are still self-centered. If we really send drones, we may encounter danger and be shot down by them if we can't reach the destination at all. Let Tong Maya Okyu go, there will be less danger and less loss, and it will be able to handle these 2 things properly. Suran nodded again and again, looked at Yuan Licheng with a smile, and said, it seems that you are quite satisfied with her. Captain Tong, it was you, Commander, who promoted her to be the captain of the Apocalypse. How can I do anything? Suran squinted at this person, and said, okay, that's it, I will contact Tong Maya Okyu tomorrow, and when her mandala is repaired, first escort her bomber back to Xinjiang, and then set off immediately, and I will stop here today. Well, it's getting late, so you should go back early. Yuan Licheng didn't say anything anymore, stood up, took his leave and left, leaving Suran alone, sitting in the commander's office, looking at the unstoppable snow outside the window, in a daze with a little ecstasy. The snow seems to be getting bigger and bigger. Same moment, U.S. Independent Satellite Signal Transmitting Station on Lanai Island, Hawaii Islands. This place used to be an important landing point for the swarms that attacked from the depths of the Pacific Ocean. The swarms once fought a war with the U.S. military here. Half of Lanai Island was almost reduced to scorched earth. Although the infrastructure of the satellite signal transmission station was barely intact, but it has also been abandoned by the U.S. military and completely abandoned. And just today, at the edge of the archipelago, a twisted and weird arm suddenly protruded from the seawater. When it first protruded from the seawater, it looked like the tentacles of some kind of octopus, but gradually branched out into spider-like legs. One by one, fingers slowly moved and spread on the beach. Just like that, Little by little, something crawled out of the seawater, and at this moment, if there are any fleet members who have participated in the pursuit of the Yunchen, they will definitely recognize that this is the twisted and strange-shaped alien creature in the alien flying saucer fighter that was captured before it was a distorted strange-shaped creature. From the outside, it looked like a large pool of black mud. It was surprising that this creature, which had been buried deep in the Pacific Ocean with its own flying saucer for an unknown number of years, seemed to be extremely afraid of water, was in a slow-moving state for a long time. After struggling out of the water, it moved slowly like this for a long time. It seemed that the water in its body had seeped out little by little, and then it stands up little by little. After standing upright like a human being, its twisted body changed rapidly. It gradually mimicked the appearance of a human male, and even the appearance changed, no longer black like mud, but changed into color similar to human skin, and even mimicked clothes. It's just that its face is stiff, and its body feels soft as if it has no bones. It stood still for a while, looked left and right for a moment. Its eyes finally fell on the abandoned signal transmitting station in the distance, and strode towards it. Chapter 36: The Xinjiang Fleet. The next day, Xinjiang Fleet Headquarters Square. It had been snowing for half the night, and a thin layer of snow had accumulated on the square, and before it could be cleaned, it was completely white from a distance. Today, however, the square is already full of people from the top and bottom of the Xinjiang Fleet. From the command level to the combat personnel on the battleship to the logistics staff in the headquarters center, medical personnel, field engineers, etc., were all gathered here this morning, looking at the high platform wearing a straight blue Suran in fleet uniform. Now there are more than 3,000 people in the fleet of Xinjiang headquarters, which can be regarded as a full station in this square. Suran looked at the gloomy sky and said, "Everyone, good morning. Unfortunately there is not much sunshine today, but at least there is Ruxa here. As the commander of the fleet, the so-called ruler, I would like to thank you all first. Without you, the fleet would not be where it is today, let alone the impressive results of the past. This time, our fleet suffered heavy losses in the Battle of Xinjiang's Brood. The soldiers went out, and the shroud of horse leather should have been intended, but I know that not many people here are real soldiers. Most of you are just survivors. Many people in my fleet were just looking for a way to survive at first, because no matter from any point of view, my fleet may be the most conducive place for survival." Right, Suran withdrew her gaze towards the sky, and looked at the people on the ground and in the square under the desolate sky. Many people lowered their heads slightly with complicated expressions, while some raised their heads and looked at Suran. Suran smiled softly, and said, "I think some people may still have the same idea, but what I want to tell you is that the fleet is indeed not a place for the elderly to die. In this world, a powerful force, it means a powerful threat. As long as you have the power to threaten others, someone will always come up to trouble you. Therefore, the fleet will never be a safe place to retire. Of course, it may be so one day, but that one day is still far from where we are today. In the future, more people will flood into the fleet, and more people will die in bloody battles. Therefore, those who have not made such preparations will not realize their own thoughts. People, now I will give you a chance. After the speech of mine is over, you can leave my fleet. I will not pursue responsibility, and I will not do anything." As soon as these words came out, there was a burst of uproar below. Who was standing side by side with Lin Yuandong, changed color slightly, said, "Brother Dong, what's going on? You don't understand this, do you?" Lin Yuandong said with a chuckle, "Suran is going to take care of everyone. Most of these people are recruited when the fleet was not formed. The group reached a peace agreement, and many of the people who joined were either spies who took advantage of the stability of the fleet, or some people who came to dawdle. Now that the fleet's internal structure has been formed and it has experienced a Pacific War, it is all these people will be expelled from time to time, and the people who will be recruited after the expulsion must be people who know that the fleet is not a place to dawdle." Who nodded again and again, and extended a thumb. "Brother Dong, your head is really turning fast. No wonder you used to be the big brother." Lin Yuandong just smiled, gestured towards the stage, and stopped talking, but glanced to the other side from the corner of his eye. Qiao Xiangjun was in the crowd on the other side. Suran's words continued, "This is the first thing I want to say today, and the second thing is that the fleet members who died in the Pacific War will be buried respectfully, and those who have relatives and friends alive will receive a large pension for the fleet, and their relatives and friends will also have priority in obtaining the right to enter the fleet." Speaking of this, Suran paused slightly, looked into the distance, and smiled slowly. "After today, There may be a lot fewer people standing here, but I think more people will stay. At that time, I really saw the power of the fleet. Our soldiers fought bloody battles. They took the fleet as their glory and their goal of victory. When the Yunchang crashed, someone asked me, "Are we defeated?" At that time, I looked at their sad expressions, and I couldn't laugh or cry, but I was more moved because I realized that our fleet finally has a soul. The warriors who sit in our fleet fight in the fleet. It's a great honor for a captain like me to let me go up and down the fleet and be proud of the fleet. So today, I want to thank you all again. And the question at that time, was the fleet defeated? I think you have the answer today, but I want to respond to everyone here one more time. From June to November today, the swarms have come, the end of the world, and the bloody battle in the world. This war is different from any great war from ancient times to the present. There will be no winners or losers in this war, only life and death. It's a race of races: the insect swarm, the spore life, and even the flying saucer alien civilization that we just destroyed in space. All understand this with astonishing unanimity. Only the insect swarm will have a future. So what I want to tell you today is that the fleet will never be defeated. As long as there is one person alive in the fleet will not be defeated here. There is only death. If you can't destroy us, you can never destroy our fleet. In the square, many people were quietly clenching their fists, as if their minds were in turmoil. But Su Ran said in a deep voice, "People have always liked to call us the Xinjiang fleet, but in fact, we have never named our fleet. These days, I have also thought about whether to change to domineering, public the name. For example, the Earth Fleet or something, but, the Xinjiang fleet, this is where our fleet is headquartered, this is where our fleet is recruited and built." The name doesn't mean anything. The people in the fleet are the spirit of the fleet. So, from today onwards, my fleet will be officially named. No matter where the fleet will go in the future, even across the starry sky, we only have one general name, Xinjiang fleet. Below, countless people looked at each other, and gradually, some people began to shout, and people were shouting the same name: Xinjiang fleet, Xinjiang fleet. It was a shocking cry, echoing in the fleet headquarters, echoing with a few warships docked alone in the distance, like an elegy to part with the past, and like a cry to welcome the future. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 37: The Uninvited Guest. Su Ran stood on the high platform to bathe in the mountains, and below him, thousands of people raised their arms and shouted the name of the fleet. Some people didn't make a sound. They might be spies of a certain party, or some speculators who just wanted to dawdle. There are also some spies or speculators who are deeply ashamed at this moment, but there are also some people who burst into tears unconsciously. Many of those fighters were fighters who had experienced many battles. Recalling the previous battles, they understood that the name Xinjiang fleet was not named, but the fame earned by the illustrious military exploits. Behind this name is a monstrous sea of blood, a hell of war. Su Ran didn't speak for a long time. She just stood on the high platform and watched the crowd below. After waiting for a long time, the atmosphere gradually calmed down. People once again raised their heads and looked at the commander on the high platform. In the sky where the dark clouds had not dispersed, someone shouted, "Your Excellency, Commander, His Excellency." The commander elicited more shouts. People raised their heads one after another, looked towards the high platform, and called out to Commander, as if they were all waiting for Su Ran to say something before the array. Yuan Lichen looked at Su Ran, who was standing on it. His eyes were also pulsating with water, and he suddenly remembered the first time he and Su Ran met. It was before the Ice City War, in the University City at the nearby hypermarket. Su Ran was almost alone at that time, but now, they have created such a fleet together. At this moment, Yuan Lichen suddenly understood why Su Ran didn't care much about the pressure from Huaxia. Before that, Yuan Lichen thought it was because of the powerful force of the fleet, but this was not the real answer at all. It was because of what Su Ran wanted to build. It is the fleet of races like swarms, like spore life. Only such a fleet can persevere and live forever, with such courage. What is the pressure from the human race? Yuan Lichen knew without looking back that after today, there must be a group of speculators or spies switching camps. At this time, Su Ran stretched out his hand and motioned everyone to be quiet. After a while, he said, "Everyone, the war is not over yet. In the next period of time, we will also face the threat of insect swarms. Readjust the situation within the fleet. I also hope that everyone will move forward together to make the fleet better and better. The last sentence is a serious official accent. After saying these words, Su Ran was the first to step off the stage, and let Li Yilin, who had been waiting by the side, organize people to withdraw. Today is over, and tomorrow will be headed by Yuan Li to eliminate the spies in the fleet. However, Su Ran had just stepped off the stage and came together with Li Yilin. Before she had time to make arrangements, she turned her head and looked to the other side, because at this moment, the crowd suddenly broke out into commotion at the back of the fleet. A group of people separated and walked towards this side. The leader is a middle-aged man in his 50s, with gray temples, but he is dressed in straight clothes, with a square face. Resolute and unforgiving. Behind him are soldiers from the military. There are not many people, but in this all-color fleet lineup, it is quite conspicuous, and more people come along the way. That is, Su Ran frowned seeing this. Yuan Licheng changed his color slightly, ran over from the crowd, and said, "That's Fan Yushin, a big man sent by Huaxia to replace Minister Jin and go a step further. Right now, he is the veritable number one in the entire new capital. Man, he is also in charge of the affairs in our fleet." Su Ran narrowed her eyes slightly. "In other words, most of the spies in my fleet are his people." Yuan Licheng glanced at Su Ran and said, "That's right." In theory, Su Ran's face became a little gloomy. In fact, he asked Yuan Licheng those questions many times. This is the headquarters of the Xinjiang fleet headquarters, and today he is giving a speech to the entire fleet, and the fact that the other party can appear here without any notification, as the commander has already explained the problem. The problem is serious. Su Ran was very annoyed. "What are you going to do?" Su Ran was silent for a moment, then turned around and walked to the high platform behind her. Fan Yushin just came to the front of the array at this time, and he was slightly stunned when he saw this scene, and then he glanced at Su Ran, as if he noticed the dissatisfaction that was almost written on Su Ran's face. He smiled contemptuously, then he took a step and walked to the stage. Li Yilin took a step forward, trying to stop him, but Su Ran said, "You are a guest, don't stop him, and everyone is quiet. Don't let people think that my fleet is disorganized and neglected management." At this time, the chaotic crowd gradually quieted down, and Fan Yushin was standing on the stage with Su Ran. He looked at the fleet members below, smiled lightly, and said, "You are the commander, Su Ran, right?" Fan Yushin, "That's right. It's only natural for you to call me Minister Fan." Fan Yushin said, "To be honest, young man, let me advise you first. If you have anything to say, let's talk about it below, not here. How about it?" "Why?" Su Ran said, "Do you have something shameful to say?" Fan Yushin shook his head, "Of course it's impossible. I'm kindly reminding you that some things, if you put them out, you, the captain, may lose your dignity." "Really? I don't think so." Su Ran chuckled. The two fell into a tense confrontation on the field. Yuan Licheng pulled Li Yilin back for a short distance, and said, "Don't worry, Su Ran is much better than you at blocking that swarm's dark energy transformation weapon." Li Yilin frowned and said, "Why did he insist on confronting Fan Yushin on stage?" "Because that's what Minister Fan wanted." Yuan Licheng looked at Fan Yushin, who was standing proudly on the stage, and said, "He's not a fool. He knows why Su Ran gathered everyone today, and he chose to come here at this time. Of course it can't be in order to have a private conversation with Su Ran. If he wanted to do this, he would never come at this time. Therefore, he came here at this time to kill Su Ran's vigor here and on the stage. All the prestige established by the speech will be returned, so that it will be easier for him to take over the entire fleet. Defeating Su Ran at the peak of his momentum will break the morale of the fleet, and this is his purpose." Li Yilin also came to her senses, worried. Then Su Ran is still confronting him in front of the stage? That Minister Fan's calculation is good, but how? Yuan Licheng looked at the stage, and at some point a confident sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, but he was wrong. Here's where blood and fire lay the foundation. His fleet. Chapter 38. What qualifications do you have? Fan Yushin turned his eyes slightly, looked at the thousands of fleet members above the headquarters square, and said quietly, "Your Excellency Commander, today is a big event, but as far as I know, from Kyushu Island to the Pacific War, the fleet also suffered heavy losses, right?" Su Ran nodded. "Indeed," Fan Yushin said, "the war has come to this point. The loss of people is actually secondary. Your warship suffered heavy losses, and even the flagship Yunchang fell on the first day of launch, right?" Su Ran said, "That's true, it's all true." Fan Yushin just smiled and said, "So, what foundation do you have now to talk about the future with these soldiers who trust you?" Su Ran also smiled and said, "I don't understand what you want to say, Your Excellency. Commander, you are short of manpower. You can recruit again. The fall of the battleship is not a problem that you can solve alone, right? Fan Yushin said, this future cannot be guaranteed with just a few words. Relying on a country, separated from the earth, who can give you long-term support. Fan Yushin was born in the military, so of course he knew that Su Ran had other abilities in building ships. This sentence was just to punish Su Ran. It is a leaderless state, and many countries have already started to fight back, taking this opportunity to strangle the swarm. And Commander, with all due respect, your identity has not yet been determined. Speaking of this, Fan Yushin turned to the many fleet members below, raised his voice, and said loudly, you can't explain your incredibleness. How can you say that you are not an alien from my race? If your excellency, you are no different from those swarms of aliens, so now you want to use us humans to form a fleet, and you have a big plan. Do you think we humans are fools? After all these words came down, they pressed on step by step, and many crew members below fell silent, but there were a few people who seemed to be arranged by Fan Yushin, and at this moment they shouted angrily in the crowd, stand up, that's right. That's the way it is. I'm afraid he himself is an alien species. What kind of Xinjiang fleet is he building? How can we just listen to it? The fleet is already like this, and you still want to do it yourself. Don't you think that there are not enough deaths? At this time, we should return to one side, so that our fleet can reduce losses. It's useless. Su Ran is a selfish person. He wants to hold the Xinjiang fleet firmly in his hands. Anyway, he can recruit again after all the people are dead. Why does he care about our lives? Su Ran looked at this scene, smiled instead of anger, and said, it seems that many people are dissatisfied with me. That's okay, I said, today, as long as they want my fleet, then you can leave on your own. Oh, yes, except for one kind of person, that is, spies who collude with both inside and outside. If you are only dissatisfied with me, then of course it doesn't matter. However, if you are instigated by others, I'm afraid everyone don't think about leaving so easily. Fan Yushin said with a smile at this time, Your Excellency, Commander, I think you are avoiding the important and threatening your subordinates. I think your subordinates are right. In the current situation, only by relying on the military and a country can the flow of water flow smoothly. With the support of the country, the Xinjiang fleet can have a bright future, and human beings can have a bright future. If you are really not of my race, Commander, it is really like what you said, Xinjiang the fleet is the fleet of human beings, so at this time, do you still want to go alone with the Xinjiang fleet for your own selfish desire? Or, I am right, you are actually the same as the insect swarm and the spore life. Fan Yushin condemned every word, and there was a burst of uproar below. Fan Yushin is very smart, all his words point to Su Ran's identity and type. Because this is exactly what people in the fleet have doubted since this period of time, is Su Ran a native of Earth? Or are they really aliens? Such doubts are mainly due to the various black technologies that Su Ran has mastered that transcend the times, and the leak of the conversations between Spore Life and Su Ran. Su Ran has tried to cooperate with the swarm before. Of course, although in the end, it proved that Su Ran was a trick to defraud the enemy, but all these things still have to make people suspect that this commander, who seemed to be carrying a miracle to shine in this catastrophe, may really be an alien, very my race. But at this moment, Su Ran yelled angrily, Minister Fan, you are so courageous. Su Ran's voice was quite loud and stern. Even Fan Yushin, who was standing on the side, was taken aback, and the soldiers of the fleet who were discussing a lot below also stopped talking and looked up to this side. Fan Yushin adjusted his position slightly, and said with a sneer, Why, Commander, do you want to prove your identity as a human? His calculation is good. If Su Ran doesn't prove his identity, after today, the officers and men in the Xinjiang fleet will definitely have doubts. When the time comes, the fleet will be in harmony with each other, and it will be a godsend opportunity for him to step in and take over the fleet, and if Su Ran proves his identity, certain secrets will definitely be exposed. Those secrets, which Su Ran hid all the way from the Ice City, must be related to the source of this kind of black technology. Fan Yushin looked at Su Ran, and thought to himself, after all, he is a little younger, and confronted himself on the stage. Can't it be seen that I came prepared? Su Ran looked at Fan Yushin, and said in a trembling voice, Prove my innocence? Why do I have to prove my innocence? Is there anything that I need to prove my innocence? Su Ran, set up an army in the Ice City, and fought in the Battle of the Ice City with destroyers. Destroying the brood of the worm swarm, and then evacuated from the Ice City, leading the Skybrood battle group alone, paved a way for the survivors of the Ice City, and saved tens of thousands of people. After the Battle of the Skybrood on the Northeast Plain, our fleet also not sparing any losses in the battle, and doing our best to defeat the enemy, the existence of the Xinjiang Special Zone was established, and hundreds of thousands of people flooded into Xinjiang to build their homes. Just 4 days ago, our fleet set off, and 3,900 people went to the Pacific battlefield, fought for thousands of miles, fought bloody battles in 3 places, and finally smashed the insect swarm and destroyed the central hive. For this reason, more than half of my fleet was damaged, and the flagship Yunchang fell. I don't want to prove my innocence. This record of iron and fire is everything. And because of this, Minister Fan, you are able to stand here and talk to me at this very moment. These repeated words, Su Ran's words were sonorous. Looking directly at Fan Yashin in front of him, while the fleet below was silent. After a moment of silence, Lin Yuanduang rolled his eyes, and was the first to raise his arms and shouted, "Great military exploits, you can stand here thanks to our Xinjiang fleet. What qualifications do you have to point fingers at our commander here?" Chapter 39 Transactions. Lin Yuanduang was the first to speak, but not the last. What qualifications do you have to stand here and speak of our commander? The Battle of the Skybrood, the Battle of the Pacific, where are you, Minister Fan? Why are you running out now, Your Excellency Commander? Do you want us to keep him? Fan Yashin's expression changed. Taking advantage of this chaotic voice, Su Ran took off his own microphone, looked at Minister Fan, and said with a smile, "Your starting point is correct. Even the most loyal fleet members, if they realize that their commander Your Excellency is not my race, and you may stand unswervingly in the fleet, but you will have a grudge in your heart. No matter whether I answer your question or not, I will be passive, but the only thing you think wrong is, my fleet was made out of iron and blood. Of course there are your people in it, but it doesn't mean anything. I don't need to explain anything. Jinja Iron Horse is my answer." Fan Yashin's complexion became more and more ugly. "On the contrary," Su Ran said with a smile on her face, "this is my fleet, it's not easy to take it away. But don't worry, I'm not the kind of small-hearted person. As the commander of a large fleet, I'm very generous. Yes, I am still willing to cooperate with Huaxia, and to tell you the truth, Minister Fan, I will soon cooperate with any country in need on a global scale. As long as you are willing, I can make the world progress and sell my fleet top-class battleship." Fan Yashin looked at Su Ran, and seemed to have adjusted his mentality after a while. The ugly look on his face gradually faded, and he said, "Okay. I see." After saying that, Minister Fan turned his head and strode down the stage. He quickly took his own people and disappeared into the hustle and bustle of voices below. At this time, Yuan Lichen came up from below and said, "Su Ran, then I'll start." Su Ran nodded. He knew what Yuan Lichen meant. The purge of the fleet began. Su Ran watched Fan Yashin disappear into the crowd, and said with a smile, calculating the time, "At this time, Tong Maioqiu and the others should have arrived at the city of Thousand Tops." "Right." Yuan Lichen nodded slightly. "The first transaction should be concluded soon." Same moment, the city of 1,000 Tops, the military headquarters of the Russian Federation. From an aerial view, half of the city has been turned into ruins. Blood, corpses and wreckage are scattered all over the ground. Billowing smoke billows from the corners. It seems that the battle has just ended. On the other side that is intact, there are iron walls and bunkers everywhere, and heavy defense facilities are everywhere, densely dotted in the streets and alleys of the city of thousands of roofs, making this huge city feel like a steel fortress. Hoshino Junxia stood behind Tong Maioqiu, and said, "It is reported that 4 days ago, before the outbreak of the Pacific War, the Russian army in the city of Thousand Tops was still fighting insects on the ground. It has been at war with the Russian Federation for several months, and the Russian Federation has built the city of 1,000 roofs into a fortress, known as the Russian Federation's Giant Bear." Tong Maioqiu frowned. "What are these names?" Junxia Hoshino smiled and said, "To put it simply, if you look down from the sky, don't you think this fortress built on the basis of the urban area of the city of thousands of roofs looks like a giant bear lying on the ground?" Tong Maioqiu looked left and right and didn't see what kind of giant bear it looked like. So she didn't care much, so she turned her head and looked at the Japanese woman beside her, and said, "Are you really planning to join the fleet? It's not serving the fleet." Hoshino Junxia said, "We just want to find a backer. Our Dongpu is located in the Pacific Ocean, and we will bear the brunt of the insect swarms. In the past few months, we have fought repeatedly and failed repeatedly. To put it mildly, we retreated to Kyushu Island, but in fact, Our earlier command system has already collapsed, and in the Kyushu Island War 4 days ago, our last command center in Kyushu Island, Chenduchin, has also been swallowed by the sea. It is a country, rather than just a group of refugees at sea. Although we still have an intricate intelligence network overseas, it is impossible for us to rely on these if we want to restore the country, so we need the support of external forces, and I think, you at that time, if we want to save the people on Kyushu Island, it may be the best object for us to invest in. Tongmaya Okyu smiled and said, "Why do I feel that you are praising me in a different way? Don't you worry that I will report to the commander this time, and he will order you to be kicked out." "No." Junksha Hoshino said confidently, "Your Excellency Commander will not do this. Because you need the intelligence network we have deployed." Tongmaya Okyu looked at her and said, "Why are you so sure? I remember that when you went to see our commander with such certainty last time, it seemed like you just touched your nose." Hoshino Junksha's face fell slightly for a second, as if she remembered some bad experience, but she quickly shook her head and said, "This time is different. Last time I was going to lie. This time I came here with sincerity. Now our Japanese command system is basically finished. The few people I contacted and I currently have overseas spy information networks. Even in this apocalyptic era, they are still in operation. The short board of your fleet, Su-Rain, will never reject us." But Tongmaya Okyu saw a little bit of worry hidden under Hoshino Junksha's seemingly confident expression. Obviously, she was also afraid of being rejected by Su-Rain. Before Tongmaya Okyu shook her head with a smile, and said, "Don't worry, I will talk more about you in front of your Excellency Commander. After all, this time my mandala can be lifted into the sky again so quickly, and your help will come to the fore. It's very important. But now we have to complete this deal with the Russian Federation first, and it seems that they are not so friendly." Saying that, Tongmaya Okyu and Hoshino Junksha looked at the ground under their feet. Together on the ground, the forts in the city of Thousand Tops are slowly adjusting their angles. The muzzles point directly at the mandala, which is slowly descending in the sky. Looking from the air, it looks like a forest of guns. Sure enough, it's a fighting nation. If I didn't say hello in advance, I thought they were going to fight us. Tongmaya Okyu didn't have the slightest fear in the face of such a situation. And she directly ordered her mandala to lower its altitude. The Russian Federation sent a request to let them land in the central area of a specific fort defense zone, but Tongmaya Okyu didn't agree. She just passed the outer circle of the survivors' base lined with heavy artillery all the way, and quickly came to the rear of the defense line of the city of Thousands of Tops, found a square and landed with a big stab. Chapter 40. The Irritable Captain Tong. It was a large red square in the city of Thousand Tops. It was located behind the military defense line. It was considered an area where survivors were active, and it seemed to belong to the demilitarized zone. When the mandala landed, there were even a large number of ordinary survivors in the square. Seeing such a huge object falling from the sky, many people ran around in panic, and for this, Tongmaya Okyu was very worried. Intimately let the mandala hover at a low altitude for a while, then slowly landed, and landed firmly on the ground. The airflow stirred up made many people around even stand a little unsteadily, but despite this, many people were unwilling to leave, and instead pointed their fingers at this side. After all, this was not the time when Su-Ran had just emerged. People from the Russian Federation who talked about whether Beijing and Huaxia were far away or not close, of course, had heard many rumors. Someone recognized it on the spot. Absolutely, this is definitely a battleship of the Xinjiang fleet. The Russian language is used here, because the Russian language is a sensitive vocabulary, and the risk of 404 is repeatedly mentioned, so everyone will make up for the relevant brain later, and no longer pay attention to it. Bright, my god, why did the Xinjiang fleet appear here? Is this the spaceship of the Xinjiang fleet? Is this a spaceship? Some children even broke away from their parents and ran all the way with a mandala. Looking at this scene, Hoshino Junksha suddenly remembered that when the mandala landed in Dongpu, the Dongpu people chased them in the same way. It's like primitive people chasing UFOs falling from the sky on a pilgrimage. For a moment, Hoshino Junksha didn't know what to say. However, the commotion among ordinary survivors did not last long, and the old man reacted very quickly. In a short while, the military separated the crowd. Several armored vehicles drove in quickly. Tongmaya Okyu ordered to open the hatch of the mandala, and left the mandala under the guard of Dong Yuanwu and other ships. Tongmaya Okyu and other talents showed up here, and the Russian Federation's convoy over there opened up, with guns everywhere, as if they might open fire at any time. Sitting in the front car was one of the local defense officers of the city of Thousand Tops, who was responsible for picking up the mandala this time. It was a lieutenant colonel named Jaeger. He almost watched the Mandala come from the one that flew over his head did not land at the designated docking position, but instead landed in the urban area for Jaeger. This is his dereliction of duty. Of course, dereliction of duty or something is not so important in Jaeger's eyes at this moment. Such behavior is clearly trampling on the dignity of their Russian Federation. It should never be tolerated. Therefore, after rushing over with his subordinates, Jaeger ordered all the staff to prepare for an exchange of fire, among other things. First put on a shocking momentum. However, Jaeger soon heard a dull metallic sound, like some huge, steel machine from the last century in operation. Jaeger was surprised to see that just after those Asians walked out of the battleship, a huge mechanical steel creation was striding out from behind, with a 6-rotation cannon in one hand and a grenade launcher in one hand, standing here, like a wall of iron and steel, and at the moment when Lieutenant Colonel Jaeger was in a daze. The female captain over there raised her voice and said, "The guns are facing each other. Is this the attitude of the Russian Federation towards its allies? I want to warn you, 4 days ago, our fleet was still dominating the Pacific Ocean, and the swarms retreated. If you think you are stronger than all the swarms in the entire Pacific theater put together, then please fire at me. I will never back down half a step. If you kill a captain here today, I can guarantee that tomorrow the whole city of 1,000 roofs will turn into a scorched earth purgatory." Tong Myaokyu's words were extremely domineering, and her voice was quite loud. After saying these words, the audience almost fell into deathly silence, and many people were frightened. Lee Hexuan, who was standing beside Tong Myaokyu, was even guilty. The fleet was disabled in the Pacific War. If there was a real fight with these Russians, whether the fleet would have the energy to avenge them is another matter. Moreover, hasn't Laomaozi always been known as a fighting nation? Such a provocation, isn't it rushing to fight hard? Lieutenant Colonel Jaeger, who hadn't gotten out of the car, changed his expression several times, but in the end, his face turned into a smiling face. He pushed open the door, and was the first to jump out of the car. With a kind smile on his face, he took his translator and walked all the way in front of Tong Myaokyu, and his translator translated, "Your Excellency is Captain Tong, right? I've heard about you for a long time. I've heard about you for a long time." Lee Hexuan was stunned by this scene. Wasn't the other party still looking aggressive just now? How could you be polite after being intimidated by your own captain? Is this still the legendary old man who keeps bears as pets and fights if there is any disagreement? Or is my cognition over the years wrong? Tong Myaokyu didn't seem surprised by the scene. She smiled and said, "Hello, you are Mr. Igor, right? You have worked hard to welcome us." "No hard work, no hard work." Jaeger said, "We have already arranged accommodation for you, if Captain Tong doesn't mind." "No. I hate it." Tong Myaokyu didn't seem to intend to give face to anyone today. She looked at Jaeger, who was burly and big enough to hold two of herself, and was like a black bear. Her expression remained unchanged. "I want to see you now, your Admiral Nikita." Jaeger showed a look of embarrassment, and said, "Admiral Nikita takes care of everything, our captain is also busy." At this time, it was Hoshino Jungsha who took over the conversation. This Dongyin girl spoke fluent Russian and said, "I won't see your Nikki in an hour. Admiral Tower, we will leave and head to our next destination. The number of countries on Earth that want to pay high prices for the next generation technology of our fleet is far beyond what you can imagine. If Admiral Nikita does not sincerely, the fleet will never set foot in the city of Thousand Tops again." Jaeger's eyes widened upon hearing this. At this moment, the thought that came to his mind was, are these people from the Xinjiang fleet too arrogant? This is on the land of my Russian Federation, or in the city of 1,000 Tops. How dare they be so arrogant? Jaeger almost couldn't control the dissatisfaction and anger in his heart, but he managed to control it after all, not because of anything else, just because of this fleet. They really couldn't afford to mess with it. Moreover, they really needed to buy the warships of the fleet. If they offended the other party at this time, Jaeger would have to bear a huge responsibility. Chapter 41 Confidence and Strength. Jaeger's expression changed for a while, but he still nodded, and his tone lowered a bit. "Well, I'll contact your Excellency the General." In fact, arranging accommodation for the people of the fleet and letting them wait for a while is what Admiral Nikita meant. The Xinjiang fleet is gaining momentum, but the Russian Federation is not a small country, so it is always necessary to give the Xinjiang fleet a little face and let them know that the brown bear lying in the north of the Xinjiang special zone is not a good dog. But unfortunately, Tong Mayaokiu's toughness is completely beyond Jaeger's imagination. This is not here for business, it's all about whether you like to buy or not. If you dare to show me face, I will beat you. This Xinjiang fleet is too arrogant, right? Jaeger felt a little aggrieved, but from another perspective, he really admired them. Sure enough, if it wasn't this kind of fleet, how could it defeat the swarm and be victorious in all battles? Immediately, Jaeger turned his head quickly and went to contact Admiral Nikita. This time the news came back quickly, and that Admiral Nikita was willing to come to see Tong Mayaokiu immediately. Nikita is indeed a little anxious. If the fleet sells the destroyer to other countries, but the Russian Federation does not get one, then he basically does not need to be an admiral. On the premise that some countries have acquired destroyers, such next-generation technological weapons, their countries do not have them, which in itself is an unbearable huge loss. Therefore, in the face of this tangible benefit in absolute force, Nikita could only swallow his anger and rush to meet Tong Mayaokiu. However, the negotiation process was very pleasant. Nikita accepted the offer of a destroyer with 100,000 tons of raw ore, and also accepted the need to help the fleet locate the advanced insect nests in and around the Russian Federation. But at this time, Nikita said, "Well, Captain Tong, we have one more request." Tong Mayaokiu said, "You say we hope that this transaction can be limited to the fleet and our Russian Federation, and not to sell other destroyers to other countries. Of course, for this, we are willing to buy more warships and pay a relatively higher price. How about it?" Nikita seemed full of sincerity, but Tong Mayaokiu shook her head. At this time, facing the general of the Russian Federation, she was quite polite and said, "Sorry, I am also following orders. Your Excellency Commander intends to do this. I have no way to change it for you. Moreover, from what I see, Your Excellency Commander has already made up his mind, and I am afraid that he will not agree to the request of Your Excellency the General." It was Nikita who nodded thoughtfully, and he didn't insist, but showed a little regretful expression. But Tong Mayaokiu smiled and said, "However, we see your sincerity, Admiral. As the neighbor to the north of the Xinjiang fleet, you are also our second company outside of cooperation with Huaxia. We are willing to give you some exceptions. The exception is, have you seen my warship?" Tong Mayaokiu said, "It's an enlightenment-level warship that is higher than a destroyer." At the moment, Tong Mayaokiu briefly talked about the performance of his own mandala, and then said, "If you are willing, our fleet is willing to sell you a warship of this level to show our sincerity to live in peace forever." Hearing these words, Nikita's eyes brightened, and he said, This is great. So how many resources do we need to purchase such an enlightenment-class warship?" Tong Mayaokiu slowly stretched out a green finger, shook it, and said with a bright smile, 1,000,000 tons of raw ore will be fine." Hearing such a number, Nikita's expression became even brighter. Obviously, in his opinion, it is not a big deal to change to a higher-level warship for 1,000,000 tons of raw ore. Of course, this is also because the Russian Federation has a huge territory and rich mineral resources, which is not bad. In short, although the deal between Nikita and Tong Mayaokiu was a bit tense at the beginning, the final result was satisfactory to everyone. Nikita even personally sent Tong Mayaokiu back to the battleship. When he was about to board the battleship, Tong Mayaokiu turned around and said with a smile, "Mr. Admiral, you can do it here, and there is no need to send it away. Even if the deal is finalized today, the first destroyer deal is still the main one. After all, we also want to see your sincerity, right?" Nikita said, "How dare we not be sincere in trading with the Xinjiang fleet? This is the truth. In this transaction, there is no so-called paper contract and content. That is because it is completely unnecessary. The strength of the fleet is where it is. The devastating blow of the fleet will not only provoke powerful enemies, but the warships of the next era that should have been obtained will be gone. Who has a broken head to do this kind of thing like fetching water from a bamboo basket?" Tong Mayaokiu just pursed her lips and smiled, and she was so beautiful. "Okay. Then the transaction will start now. At this time 2 days later, we will transport the destroyer to the city of thousands of tops. Before that, please, the paid resources will also be transported by us, so I hope that you can prepare 100,000 tons of raw ore in the city of thousand tops in advance." Nikita was taken aback. So fast. Nikita also knew that the fleet suffered heavy losses in World War I in the Pacific, so how could they come up with additional warships for sale at this time? However, here is the fact right now. Nikita couldn't help but look at Tong Mayaokiu more, thinking, the fleet really has a backup. It is said that no one noticed before the Yunchang took off. It is estimated that the fleet still hides an unknown number of huge warships and even arsenals. So arrogant, it turns out that the Foundation is not damaged, full of confidence. Of course Tongmaya Okyu knew what Nikita was surprised about, but she didn't say anything, just nodded with a smile. That's it, please hurry up and prepare, and the information about the advanced brood, the sooner you send it to the better we are. I hope the cooperation between our two parties will last for a long time. At the moment, Tongmaya Okyu stopped staying, but immediately took the people on his side and boarded his mandala. Amid the roar of the engine, he rose from the ground inch by inch and flew into the sky. Disappeared at the end of the sky, and ran to the next cellar, but on the ground, Nikita watched the huge steel battleship disappear into the far end of the sky, but he felt a little envious in his heart. In the past, in the international circles, it was said that the Russian Federation was a heavy industrial and military power, but compared with other warships, those of our own country were nothing. Ask for a wave of genuine. Chapter 42. New threats and old friends. While the mandala was traveling around the world under the guidance of Tongmaya Okyu, Su Rain was looking at the new threat in the Xinjiang Special Zone. Not long after Fan Yashin left, the radar warning system of the Xinjiang Fleet headquarters discovered a Fugalo wandering in the sea hundreds of nautical miles away from the Koryo coastline. However, despite this, it was quickly discovered by the fleet, and it was confirmed that the target of the Fugalo, which had been circling within dozens of kilometers, was the Xinjiang district. For this reason, the high-level commanders of the fleet immediately held an emergency meeting. Yuan Lichen, as an important non-military leader, was responsible for the purge of the fleet and the recruitment of new personnel. He did not appear in the meeting room on the top floor of the fleet headquarters building, but Lin Yuandong, Hu, Qiao Xiangjin and others gathered here one after another. Qiao Xiangjin's appearance here today can already explain everything. Therefore, Su Ran didn't ask him about his choice, and just talked about the current situation when he came up. Qiao Xiangjin looked at the 3D modeling of Xinjiang and its surrounding areas simulated in the meeting room, and said, "It lingers. There are two possibilities. First, it is difficult to make an accurate decision. After the Pacific War, it is a very common phenomenon. The central command layer of the insect swarm has been severed, and many insect nests are in a state where it is difficult to make decisions and conserve strength. According to the analysis of our fleet's advisory group, they probably have an emergency behavior regulation. The existence of the regulations has allowed many insect nests to enter the current state. As a high-level insect nest, Fugalo may be affected by this regulation. The second is that it is waiting for reinforcements. Although its goal is clear, but it is too far away, not like someone who is about to attack, but more like wandering in the local airspace, waiting for more reinforcements to arrive. After all, although Fugalo's strength is high, but with the current strength of our fleet the strength is still manageable, so it is waiting for reinforcements to launch an attack on our Xinjiang Special Zone." Hearing these words, Hu nodded slightly, obviously thinking that Qiao Xiangjin's analysis made sense. "I think what old Qiao said is right. Since the Xinjiang War, the swarm has been sending little war worms to test the intelligence of our fleet. Obviously, we have been eyeing us for a long time. Since this is the case, I suggest that our fleet respond immediately. The turbo laser guns we supported for the new capital have also been withdrawn, and then I will start to deploy these turbo laser guns." "This is a bit wrong," Lin Yuandong said. "They want to attack the Xinjiang fleet. Why don't they just attack during the Pacific War? Close the encirclement and swallow us in one bite." At that time, their central brood was destroyed, the command system was broken, and the encirclement had already collapsed. Qiao Xiangjin explained, looking at the model in front of him, frowning. However, in the current situation of the insect swarm, humans all over the world, they all feel that the time to rework has come. The swarm probably wants to destroy us first. It is not only an attack of revenge, but also taking advantage of your illness to kill you. Now is the time when the fleet is weakest. They want to seize this opportunity to destroy us." Lin Yuandong also nodded, said, "According to the past, the swarm has already come, so it should wait so many days, but, because the central nest of the swarm has been destroyed, the command system is basically paralyzed. The response speed of the swarm is far slower than before, and there is no so fast. Their assembly speed is also slow, which is a good thing for our fleet." Su Ran also nodded when he heard the words. In his opinion, taking advantage of the fleet's momentum might be the purpose of these remaining swarms, but since San Diego, they obviously have another purpose, to welcome their queen back in the hive system of the swarm. The queen is not only a decision maker and ruler, but also a real, key figure like the base vehicle in the game. A few Gallo and a Sky Mother Ness may not be able to bite us down, so you don't have to worry too much. Suran said, just as Hu said, let's first reflect the turbo laser along the headquarters line. When it is deployed, it is not only necessary to defend against the Pacific Ocean direction, but also against insect swarms in other directions, so that all warships, attack aircraft, and drone control teams are on standby, ready to fire at any time, and our monitoring and radar departments are also 120,000 cents must be put together to monitor the situation around the Xinjiang Special Zone at all times, and never give the swarm any chance. Listening to Suran's order, everyone accepted the order in awe-inspiring manner. After discussing a lot of details, they left in a hurry to make arrangements for Gallo has already appeared, and no one knows when the swarm will launch an attack. The fleet is empty, and vigilance and caution are very necessary now all over the world. Every powerful country and survivor base is preparing to counterattack the worm nest, and wants to take this opportunity to wipe out the shrinking worm swarm in its area. The more unfavorable it is, so the fleet must also be prepared for the swarm to attack Xinjiang headquarters in a desperate manner. Seeing Hu and others leave, Suran said in his heart, I hope Meng Yibei's value is worth the risk the fleet is taking at this moment. Not long after Hu and others left, Yuan Lichen hurried in, looked at Suran, and said excitedly, the spore life has returned to us. You guessed it right, they are indeed still leaving individuals on the Earth. However, I think they are waiting for us to find them. Our destroyer just broadcast in the new capital yesterday, and today they took the initiative to find them. It really feels like they are waiting for us to come to our door. Sometimes Suran can't guess what the spore life is thinking, but Suran's countermeasure is always, if I can't guess, I won't guess, I just deal with it. However, hearing that the spore life had indeed left people on the Earth, Suran stood up immediately and asked, where are they? Yuan Lichen, the living room of the headquarters. At that moment, Suran followed Yuan Lichen all the way down to the living room downstairs, and then opened the door, and saw a woman with a ponytail sitting in the corner, drinking tea leisurely, when she heard the door open behind her. Only then did they stand up slowly, and this person turned out to be an acquaintance of Suran. It was the Liu Tingting who was chosen as the representative by Spore Life. When Liu Tingting saw Suran, she smiled slightly and said, we meet again. This should be the first time we have set foot in your headquarters. Liu Tingting appeared surprisingly normal and polite. Chapter 43. This planet has been targeted. Liu Tingting had a sweet and gentle smile on her face, as if she was an old friend reunited after a long absence, who had been waiting for a long time and wanted to catch up with Suran. Suran didn't like this, and he didn't have the time to talk nonsense, so he went straight to the topic and threatened, battle in the Pacific. You will die, believe it or not. I will return the money after autumn, and I will kill you all over the universe. Keep. Yuan Lichen stood at the back with his hands behind his back, and didn't speak any more. Liu Tingting was neither nervous nor angry, but said leisurely, we thought you didn't have time to trouble us with that. Said, it even sat down on the sofa in the living room at the back, pointed to the seat opposite to itself, and said, please sit down. Suran was not angry either. The threat he just said was aimless, it was just an attitude. At this time he said, what do you mean? Didn't you plot against us in the Sky Brood War before? Complicated with each other, this is considered even. Liu Tingting said, besides, we have restrained ourselves and have not moved your subordinates. However, I really want to ask, since your battleship is complete, why don't you just run away and still waste time here? Why are you still wasting your time here? Suran sat down, different from Liu Tingting's relaxed expression. His expression was very serious from the beginning. I hope you can give me a reasonable reason, otherwise with the current situation, the insect swarm is half destroyed. I just slow down now that I am in such a tone. I will kill you on the Earth first. If it is Suran's casual threat to say that the universe is chasing and killing, but this sentence is true. The system is now level 4, and now, level 5 is just around the corner. The period of rapid fleet development has arrived. At that time, as long as the spore life is still on the Earth, Suran is absolutely sure to kill them all. Keep. Liu Tingting seemed to be still very calm. She shook her head and said, Suran, don't get me wrong. We didn't keep manpower here to trouble you. In fact, we have 2 plans. First, if you die, we will find a way to occupy this planet, although the human life situation here is very backward, and those stupid bugs are not a race worth invading, but now that we are in decline, don't let it go in vain. The casual tone in these words made Yuan Lichen raise his eyebrows slightly. On the other hand, Suran remained motionless, as if he didn't care about the content of the sentence at all. After a moment of silence, he said coldly, I have already set my sights on this planet, of course. It is precisely because this planet is being targeted by you that we have a second plan, that is, the plan that you are not dead. Liu Tingting glanced at Su Ran and said, unfortunately, you did not die. Su Ran said, I'm also very sorry that I didn't knock you down from the sky immediately. Don't say that. Su Ran, our cooperation is still very pleasant. Those stupid bugs don't know how they lost. Liu Tingting said, those stupid bugs even tried to win me over. There is such a huge gap between us, there is no possibility of cooperation between us and them, only they become our vassals. Civilization can decline, but as long as technology and achievements exist, there will always be a day of rise, but the technological gap, the civilization, the backwardness cannot be filled for tens of millions of years. These words made Su Ran a little concerned. Sure enough, the spore life has always looked down on the swarm. However, from this point of view, does it prove that the spore life feels that this down-and-out alien is the kind of person who has declined but has the inheritance of civilization, so the spore life thinks highly of itself? Thinking of this level, Su Ran suddenly couldn't laugh or cry. She didn't know whether she should feel happy or depressed, but at the end of these words, it was Liu Tingting who was boasting about her spore life. Su Ran said, stop talking nonsense. Liu Tingting smiled and said, in the final analysis, we are all limited by the current human body. The speed of human information exchange is too slow, so it seems that we are always talking nonsense. Su Ran said, tell me about your second plan. I'm not dead, what are you going to do? I hope you'd better speak carefully, otherwise I'll slaughter all of you on Earth in the future. You don't need to slaughter them all. Here is the list of individuals we still have left on Earth. There are 103 people in the new capital, and 76 people in Australia, a total of 179 people. Liu Tingting said. He handed over a small notebook and said, as for our second plan, we want to cooperate with you. Su Ran narrowed her eyes slightly, and said, if I remember correctly, in the Pacific War, you would do nothing but die, and before the bastard escaped, we were still in a cooperative relationship. The cooperation we hope for now is different from what it was then. Liu Tingting said, before we left this planet, you wanted to kill us, and we wanted you to die too. This is just to use each other and take what they need. You are stronger than us, and you are one with human beings, which poses a great threat to us, so we hope you can die even more. It's too straightforward. Su Ran smiled, and was not annoyed, because he had dealt with aliens like spore life a lot, and he could gradually figure out some of their thoughts. At this time, he had already guessed out of the intention of the other party's cooperation. At this time, he asked instead, what about now? Now, our main body has left this planet, so we plan to cooperate with you. Liu Tingting said, this time it will be a real cooperation. We will assist you and provide you with some of our advanced and powerful biotechnology support, and you provide us with shelter. We want to achieve a symbiotic relationship with you. Su Ran rubbed her chin and said, that's why you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Previously, they used each other because the civilizations of spore life were all on the Earth. Su Ran was vigilant against them and wanted to destroy them all. It is just a small part of spore life individuals among them, and they are the eggs separated out to be placed in another basket. Su Ran can understand that this is prepared for the extermination of the genus. If the main body of the starry sky is destroyed, the spore life will still have the seeds on the Earth, and if the Earth is destroyed, there will be the seeds in the starry sky. In this way, the starry sky is so big, but the probability of their genocide is actually smaller. Chapter 44 The Gaze of Proxima Centauri. In this way, if Su Ran dies, Liu Tingting and the spore life will develop on the Earth, and if Su Ran does not die, they will be attached to Su Ran, the powerful leader of technological civilization. It is all beneficial and harmless. That's why, as Yuan Lichen said, the spore life is waiting for Su Ran to come to him. After figuring this out, Su Ran can confirm that the cooperation of the spore life is credible, at least at present. It is very credible in terms of this way of diverting and preserving the ethnic groups, and in this form of cooperation, the spore life will definitely no longer hide evil intentions for Su Ran. If he could establish a cooperation with this swarm in this way, it would be equivalent to establishing a symbiotic relationship. For him and his fleet, there would be no harm but nothing to Su Ran's heart, especially the biotechnology of spore life. Su Ran thought instantly that maybe they could be used to solve Meng Yibei's problems. Thoughts were spinning in Su Ran's mind, and Liu Tingting was stunned for a moment at Su Ran's sentence that eggs should not be put in one basket. as if she was looking for memories, and it took a few seconds before she responded. This understanding is not wrong. Of course, it will take time to gain your trust. But you don't have time. No, it's time we don't. That's us, talking like I've agreed to cooperate with you. Su-Ran looked at it and said, "You've been saying that I don't have time since just now. What does that mean?" Liu Tingting smiled and said, "I believe you will not refuse. As for the lack of time, because Proxima Centauri has already set its sights on this planet, better, neighboring star?" Su-Ran was a little at a loss. He knows Proxima Centauri. It is the closest star to the Earth and the solar system, only 4.22 light points away, and its mass is much smaller than the Sun, only 1/8 of the Sun, and Proxima Centauri is also named Alpha Centauri c. It is the third star of the South Gate II, Greek letter Alpha Centauri, triple star. The triple star is a 3-star system, but the other 2 stars in this triple star system, the distance between Proxima Centauri and Proxima Centauri is very far. The light from their stars needs to travel in space for at least half a month to reach Proxima Centauri, which is even farther away from the Earth, but 4.2 light years is not a joke. Su-Ran was a little dazed when he heard it at first. This day, he was talking about things on the Earth. Why did he suddenly become outer space? There is also the gaze of Proxima Centauri. Where does a star have any gaze? In fact, Su-Ran didn't turn his mind around. He glanced at the smiling Liu Tingting, but he suddenly reacted. The gaze here certainly cannot be a star turned into a living thing. It's about the civilization that can cast the so-called gaze nearby. Su-Ran remembered that in various scientific reports, it was claimed that there might be a habitable planet near Proxima Centauri. At that time, Su-Ran had read it specifically and said that if the existence of this habitable planet could be confirmed, Proxima Centauri would be the place for human beings to live. Human beings only need 400 years of sailing time to arrive at a best immigration place in the future. In fact, in the later popular movie The Wandering Earth, the final destination of the Wandering Earth is exactly this star on the Earth. The habitable planet near Proxima Centauri. 4.2 light years away. There's a habitable planet out there. Then this gaze. Su-Ran thought about it, and said, "Proxima Centauri, who is there? Why do they cast their gaze on the Earth?" This question had to be asked, because he really didn't understand it, and it would be a real fool to pretend to be stupid at this time. Liu Tingting observed Su-Ran's expression carefully, and said with some regret, "I thought you knew." Su-Ran felt that there was something in Liu Tingting's words, so she replied ambiguously, "The universe is so big, I don't know anything." Yuan Lichen listened to the conversation behind him with a serious expression. At this moment, both he and Su-Ran realized that when the term Proxima Centauri appeared in this conversation, the situation seemed to have exceeded their expectations. "Indeed, we don't know who the Proxima star fleet is." This sentence made Su-Ran feel a little relieved, and said, "Then how do you know that Proxima Centauri is looking at the Earth, the swarm?" At this point, Liu Tingting also showed a serious look, and said, "You know, we have occupied a Vagalo. Although we have been guarded by the swarm, we have not gained nothing. Proxima Centauri is our harvest. 1. The swarms are not here to invade the Earth. They are just a group of panicked bereaved dogs." As soon as these words came out, both Yuan Licheng and Su-Ran were shocked. However, both of them hid it quite well, and did not show their surprised expressions. But Su-Ran immediately thought of many things. Why the swarm invaded the Earth, but even war worms, Fugalo, etc. had to be created on the Earth. Why they were afraid of alien creatures like tigers. They were also defeated by another wave of aliens. Bereaved dogs, Su-Ran said. It was the Proxima Centauri fleet that defeated them. That's right. Liu Tingting said, "The swarm has been wary of the Vagalo under our control, and has been aware of it for a long time, so the information we can get is very limited, but it is true. The swarm and Proxima Centauri, the fleet, seems to belong to different forces in the 2 galaxies, or groups of civilizations. This is why the Zerg swarm and the Proxima star fleet went to war. The fleet was destroyed, and almost the entire army was wiped out. Only this one took the Queen through the wormhole, jumped a few times, and crashed into the outer space of the Earth by chance. It was discovered that the solar system is an unmarked area, and the Earth is an ownerless planet, so he called all the way in, wanting to hide, but also wanting to use the Earth to make a comeback." Hearing these words, Su-Ran's mind flashed many thoughts. It's no wonder that when the end of the world just broke out, the military's response and global notification were half a beat late. It turns out that the swarms jumped in and plunged into the Earth. There is not much buffer time left for the global military. Civilians. The speed at which ordinary people understand the situation is even slower, and Liu Tingting said, "Do you know what these two forces are? In our era of crisscrossing the starry sky, there have never been many civilization-building forces." Su Ren's brows twitched when he asked this sentence. He shook his head, and said, "I didn't have it in my ear either. What did the starry sky look like in your era?" End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.